Chapter 778. Similar to Yu Ying, Yang Yi also wanted to inspire Xi-Xi's sense of self-protection by telling her stories. However, unlike Yu Ying, who created an orthodox fairy tale that was close to life, the story Yang Yi wanted to tell Xi-Xi came from a classic fantasy novel in his previous life. Of course, it was also a children's book. Xi-Xi certainly wanted to hear her father tell her new stories, because Yang Yi had reduced the frequency of telling her new stories after she started reading before bed. Although it was interesting to read picture books with colorful pictures with her father, Xi-Xi liked her father's stories even more. This story happened in the distant England. Xi-Xi, do you know where England is? Yang Yi took the small globe that he had bought for Xi-Xi and pointed to the long and narrow island for Xi-Xi to see. It's here. Xi-Xi curiously leaned into her father's arms and looked at it. Hey Papa, it's very close to Lu Weisha's house. Xi-Xi's eyes glanced at the place where the globe had drawn a circle and said with some surprise. Yes, it's very close to Lu Weisha's house. Yang Yi said with a smile. Back to the story that Xi-Xi was looking forward to hearing, Yang Yi described the 4 children, Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy. They were sent to the home of an old professor in the countryside to escape the war. That was a story from a long time ago, not long after your grandfather was born. At that time, the capital of England was often bombed by planes. The planes with big bombs would blow up a whole house when they flew over. Yang Yi spread out his fingers and exaggerated the appearance of the explosion. Boom! It's all gone. Many people would be killed at that time. Xi-Xi's small mouth opened in surprise, but her surprise and fear did not suppress her desire to speak. Papa, what about Grandpa? Why did you blow up the house? The little girl hugged her father's arm and asked worriedly. At that time, our country was also at war. Some bad guys wanted to rob our homeland, so they sent bombing planes over. Fortunately, the army defeated them, so we can live in peace now. Yang Yi comforted Xi-Xi with a smile. Grandpa is also fine. Isn't he fine now? Xi-Xi heaved a sigh of relief. The kind-hearted little girl muttered, We can't fight. Fighting is not a good thing. Well, she mistook war as a fight. Yang Yi continued to tell the story. After a while, Yang Yi told the story of Lucy playing hide-and-seek with her brothers and sisters in the professor's big house. The original novel was not about hide-and-seek. The plot of the movie was hide-and-seek. Yang Yi felt that it would be easier for Xi-Xi to understand the plot of the movie because she had just played hide-and-seek with her friends on the 1st of June. In Yang Yi's rhythmic description, Lucy got into the big wardrobe. What she didn't expect was that she actually went through it and suddenly appeared in a snowy forest. The trees were very tall, and the leaves were as thin as grass. They were covered with fine ice. Snowflakes were floating in the sky. They were like fairies, swaying and sprinkling on Lucy's hair. Yang Yi gently touched Xi-Xi's hair and described with words. It seemed that the whole world was covered with a very clean white. Only not far away, there was a lamp-post that was on, emitting a dim yellow light. Yang Yi's description gradually formed a clear picture in Xi-Xi's mind. Xi-Xi felt that it was very magical. Her big eyes were shining, and she couldn't help but let out a soft, wow. Was there such a magical world behind the wardrobe? Papa, is this where Sister Elsa lives? Xi-Xi asked naively. No, this is another magical world. Listen to Papa. Yang Yi smiled and told Xi-Xi the next story. Lucy met a strange shepherd, Mr. Tunas, whose upper body was a human and lower body was a lamb leg. Later, under the warm invitation of this shy Mr. Tunas, Lucy, who originally wanted to go home, decided to follow Mr. Tunas and visit his home. Half human and half lamb, this is very magical. However, what appeared in Xi-Xi's mind was the cute little face of a lamb, not the appearance of a shepherd. Xi-Xi, if you were Lucy, would you go to his home with Mr. Tunas? Yang Yi stopped and asked. Xi-Xi blinked her eyes, hesitated for a moment, and shook her head. Yang Yi was very pleased and asked, Why not? Xi-Xi looked at Papa and said, Because I don't know him, and then I didn't tell Papa that I can only go to other people's home with Papa's consent. Yang Yi touched Xi-Xi's little head with gratification, but he didn't rush to preach, and continued to tell the story. At Mr. Tuna's house, the shy but enthusiastic shepherd invited Lucy to tea and snacks, and even played a song from his hometown for her, which was actually a lullaby. As the story became more and more intense, Mr. Tunas finally became ruthless. He told the sleepy Lucy that he was going to report Lucy's news to the White Witch, because the bad person who turned the beautiful land of Narnia into a world of ice and snow wanted to catch every human child who appeared. Mr. Tunas is a bad guy? She, who was a little sleepy from listening to the story, heard this twist and her big eyes widened in disbelief. Mr. Tunas, who Yang Yi had just described, was actually a very good shepherd. Although he looked strange, he was actually very timid and very kind. She felt that it was not a bad choice for Lucy to go to drink tea. Let's not care whether Mr. Tunas is a bad guy or just a good person who wants to do bad things under the coercion of the White Witch. Yang Yi turned around, looked into Cece's eyes, and began to talk about his real purpose tonight. In fact, it's not that simple. In fact, there are many, many bad people in this world that you can't see. Cece was so engrossed in listening that she even forgot to interrupt. Bad people will not label themselves as bad people. You may know a person for a long time, but you may not know his true nature. It is possible that a person who looks very good can actually be a bad guy. Yang Yi said, only mom and dad are definitely good people who will never harm you. You can't judge other people based on your intuition, understand? Then what should I do? She pursed her lips and asked fearfully. Don't worry, you still need dad to help you judge. When you grow up and have your own judgment, you will be able to judge whether he is a good person or a bad person. Yang Yi said gently, this is also why dad told you that no matter where you go now, you have to tell dad first and ask for dad's permission. She nodded obediently. Dad, now give me another example. Yang Yi smiled and said, it's similar to the question teacher Kai asked. What if you and dad are traveling outside, but you accidentally get separated from dad? Find the security uncle and ask them to call dad. She answered very smoothly. Dad's phone number is 13x times x times x. This method works, but sometimes you may not be able to find the security uncle or the police uncle, and the person you ask for help may be a bad person. Yang Yi said. Chapter 779. I already said that I should look for the police uncle if I have any difficulties. Now my father said that the police uncle might also be a bad person. This is making things difficult for me, Yang Xiaoxi. I don't know. She pouted and said. She was now immersed in the scene set by her father, but she had forgotten what her father had given her in the beginning. It didn't matter. Yang Yi took the Buddha pendant and shook it gently in front of Shi. He smiled and said, you can use this. Press it once to call your father. Press it twice and you'll hang up the phone. Cece remembered this. She yawned and said, yes. In this way, you can talk to your father and tell him where you are. He will come to find you immediately. Yang Yi smiled and said, also, if you are really in danger and you shouldn't make any sound, you only need to press this thing twice. You don't need to talk on the phone, and your father can quickly appear by your side. She nodded obediently. She rubbed her eyes. She was very tired mentally and physically, but the little girl still listened very carefully. So, you must remember. If you encounter any problems, you can use this thing to summon your father to your side. Your father will definitely protect you. Yang Yi gently put the Buddha pendant in Shi's hand and let her hold it. This way, the memory would be deeper. She should have remembered it. Yang Yi put away the Buddha pendant, tucked her in, and said softly, well, go to sleep. Look at how sleepy you are. Papa, you haven't finished the story yet. She said reluctantly. It's okay to listen to it tomorrow. Yang Yi said with a smile. Sleepiness came like waves, one after another. She couldn't help but close her eyes. Her delicate little nose breathed gently, as if she had begun to fall asleep. Yang Yi still had to accompany Shi for a while. He didn't leave until she was completely asleep. Unexpectedly, after a while, She opened her confused eyes again and whispered, "Papa, is Mr. Tunas a bad guy?" She was still brooding over this issue. Why was Mr. Tunas the shepherd, who sounded so nice, a bad egg? He's not a bad guy. He still has some conscience. You'll know tomorrow. Yong-yi said, "Dad can tell you secretly. Lucy will be fine." Hearing this answer, Cece's tense heartstrings finally relaxed. Only then did the sleepy little girl fall asleep peacefully. In the United States, in an ordinary apartment in Queens, New York, Wilson, who was carrying a briefcase and wearing a suit, was returning from outside. When he took out his key to open the door of the suite opposite his opened, and a young man's head poked out. "Hey, Wilson, I remember you're a music agent, right?" The young man had earrings hanging from his ears and a tattoo on his arm that was holding onto the doorframe. Of course, it wasn't the kind of tattoo that belonged to a notorious gang. It was just a reflection of the young man's personality. "Miller." "Yes, brother, what's the matter?" Wilson said with a smile. Obviously, they were very familiar with each other. Although they were not as familiar with each other as they were in Friends or The Big Bang Theory, they were still neighbors. Wilson was more than 10 years older than Miller. Miller had just graduated from college, while Wilson had been an agent for more than 10 years. However, both of them liked basketball, so they often watched games together. "Then you must know music very well." "Well, I'm going to confess to a girl tonight, so I learned a song online. Can you help me see how I sing it? Or help me guide me?" Miller raised the guitar in his hand. "Oh, why are you so serious?" "Miller, I guess it must be a very beautiful girl." Wilson teased. "She is very beautiful and has a hot body. Also, she is very shy." Miller smiled. "Brother, do you agree?" "Why not? I'm happy to help you." Wilson didn't even go back to his place. He went straight to Miller's house to listen to him sing. "I learned this song from a singer online. He's Chinese. ***, it's very troublesome to buy songs from Chinese websites." Miller explained to Wilson. "You want to sing a Chinese song? Or is your girl Chinese?" I have to say, I'm shocked," Wilson said in surprise. No. She's not Chinese. Also, I'm going to sing an English song. It's a very good English song. It was very popular on the website for a while. I'll sing it for you. You can give me some suggestions later." Miller quickly explained. Dang, dang, dang. Miller played the guitar. The accompaniment was a little rusty. The score was also found by someone else, so he didn't know if it was right. Not a bad prelude. Wilson nodded slightly and thought to himself, Will you? That's right. Miller sang Yong-yi's I'm Yours. He probably didn't learn it for long. Although he was a little rusty, he still managed to sing the basic tune. After Miller finished singing, Wilson asked Miller to play the song on the computer. Once the original song was played, the difference was immediately obvious. It's very good. As Wilson listened, he sighed to himself. How can a Chinese sing an English song so well? Wilson still guided Miller enthusiastically. Although he wasn't considered a music expert, he was still in the industry. In the past, he wanted to be a singer. However, the difference in ability was too great, so he chose to be a manager. With his level, he could still give some guidance to a rookie like Miller. What's with this song of yours? I don't think I've heard of it before. Where did you get it? Wilson asked casually as he chatted with Miller over a beer during a break in the guidance. A Chinese singer sang it. Around April, someone took a video of him and uploaded it to the internet. Then, it suddenly became a hit. My friend showed me this video. Wait, I'll show it to you. Miller excitedly opened the video's webpage in his favorites folder. Wilson saw the video of Yong-yi singing for Murphy. However, compared to the specially recorded music, the sound quality of the video was much worse. Wilson only paid more attention to Yong-yi's appearance. It really was a Chinese. His singing voice didn't sound like a Chinese at all. Look here. There's a comment by Bruno Levin at the bottom of the video. Bruno Levin guessed correctly. This man is indeed a professional singer. Previously, many people didn't believe that this song was written by this Chinese. Miller said, "Wait, you're saying that this song was written by him?" Wilson asked in surprise. "You didn't believe it either, right?" Miller chuckled and said, "But later on, it was confirmed that it was written by him. Moreover, this guy is really good. He's a very good singer in China. He has written many songs and is also a writer. At the beginning of the year, I recommended Prison Break to you. Do you still remember?" "Yes, Prison Break is my favorite TV series," Wilson said regretfully. "Unfortunately, the next season will have to wait until next year." "Wait, you mentioned Prison Break. What does it have to do with this person?" "Prison Break was written by him. Wolf TV bought the rights from him. I heard that Global Pictures wanted it, but they couldn't compete with Wolf," Miller said emotionally. "Sigh, the more you talk about it, the more I like this guy. That's impossible. With so many achievements, he shouldn't be unknown. I've never heard of him," Wilson said with a frown. Miller shrugged and smiled. "Maybe it's because he didn't come to America to develop his career? When I went to the Chinese website to buy and download this song, my friend who taught me said that there might not be any management company in America that signed him. That's why I had to put in a lot of effort." "Miller, what did you say his name was?" Wilson's eyes flashed, but he still had a question that he wasn't sure of. "His name is Yang." Chapter 780. Wilson was considered an experienced music agent in the industry. Although he was capable and experienced, his vision and luck were average. None of the singers he signed with were able to make a name for themselves in the American music industry. The only one who was more capable and had some achievements was a cowboy singer from his hometown, Texas. He was discovered by Wilson during a country music competition. His singing skills were unquestionable, but the cowboy was a little addicted to alcohol and had a bad temper. Once, Wilson arranged for him to appear on a TV show. However, the guy casually said something that exposed his racist tendencies. He was strongly boycotted, and naturally, his future was ruined. Therefore, Wilson could only say that he had been doing well all these years. In comparison, a female agent who joined the company in the same year as him had been promoted to a gold medal manager after making a singer popular. Why would she need to live in a commoner's apartment like him? Wilson was eager to discover a newcomer with potential and turn him into a superstar in the music industry. He wanted to prove that he was not an unlucky music agent. "This is the person I want." Wilson looked at Yang Yi on the computer screen and felt a surge of impulse. After bidding farewell to Miller, Wilson returned to his apartment. He did not even bother to take off his clothes. He pulled on his tie and turned on his computer excitedly and nervously. Through some of his agent resources, he looked up Yang Yi's name. No. He's not even registered with the American Singers Guild. This guy is really a complete newcomer. Wilson looked at the results of his investigation excitedly. Yang Yi had not signed with any music or management company in the United States. Wilson felt that he had a chance. He was an Asian singer who could compose beautiful English songs. The cumulative views of his singing videos had already exceeded 100 million views. Furthermore, this person had a certain degree of popularity among the Chinese community. He had also written a wonderful script like Prison Break. With all these factors combined, if he still did not become popular, Wilson felt that he would no longer be able to survive in this industry. However, there was a problem. How could Wilson find this singer? "I have to go to China and find Yang before the other agents find him. But China is so big. Where can I find him?" Wilson pondered. "By the way, I think Leo's ex-girlfriend is an international student from China. Maybe she can help." Wilson thought of one of his cousins. Wilson did not know that after Yang Yi became famous, many record companies in the US approached him. There were even some international tycoons who wanted to sign him to develop in the US. But the result was obvious. Yang Yi rejected all of them. However, Wilson didn't have time to think too much about it. Regardless of whether others were rejected or not, he had to give it a try no matter what. He had to seize this precious opportunity. 4 days later, at Shanghai Hongqiao International Airport, Wilson, who had flown halfway around the world, arrived in China. His cousin's ex-girlfriend generously helped him. Not only did she help him find the contact address of Yang Yi's studio, but she also helped him describe his route plan after arriving in Shanghai in both English and Chinese. Therefore, although it was difficult for Wilson, he still showed up at the entrance of Phoebe's studio a day later. After a long explanation with the receptionist, Mo Xiaowan received him. Mo Xiaowan had also lived in the US for a period of time. Her spoken English made Wilson feel close to her. He told Mo Xiaowan his intention: "I rushed over from the US because I want to talk to Yang face to face. If he goes to the US to develop his career, he will definitely become a very popular star." Wilson even handed Mo Xiaowan his business card. The name of the management company listed on it was very famous. However, what disappointed him was that Mo Xiaowan wasn't very surprised. Maybe they still don't know the strength of Treasure Management Company. Wilson thought to himself. He tried his best to describe the top 10 management companies in the US to Mo Xiaowan. At the same time, he also bragged about his own abilities and achievements. There were indeed a lot of exaggerations. Even so, Mo Xiaowan was still unmoved. She had even received people who were bigger than Wilson on behalf of Yang Yi. Although it was not necessarily about music, people from Wolf TV station, the great director Wu Yian, and others were more important than Wilson. "If you want to meet Yang Yi, I'm sorry to disappoint you. He is not in Zhongqing now. He went to Shanghai early this morning to record a program," Mo Xiaowan said to Wilson. Mo Xiaowan was not lying to Wilson. Yang Yi had indeed gone to Shanghai to record a program. The special program of the Extreme Challenge, the charity concert, would officially start tomorrow night. Yang Yi, as Dan Hongkuei's guest composer and actor, would also be performing on stage. Moreover, according to the arrangement, he would have a solo song. However, to Wilson, this was a piece of news that made him feel helpless and disappointed. It was not easy for him to find his way to Zhongqing from Shanghai. In the end, Yang Yi had gone to Shanghai. This was simply fate making a fool out of him. How about this? It was not easy for you to come all the way here from the US. If you are willing, I can bring you to Shanghai to watch Yang Yi's performance. After that, I will arrange a meeting for both of you, okay? Mo Xiaowan said. "All right. Thank you very much." Wilson felt as if he had been saved from a hopeless situation. He grabbed this opportunity excitedly. When Wilson arrived in Shanghai, he could not meet Yang Yi as Yang Yi was still rehearsing. However, Yang Yi knew about Wilson's situation. Mo Xiaowan was also contacting some acquaintances in the US to help investigate Wilson's background. Wilson, who was kept in the dark, waited until the concert started. He then watched the show with great interest. Although he could not understand the Chinese songs on the stage and the host's Chinese dialogue at all, Wilson still found it interesting. This concert was not serious singing, and there were all kinds of pranks on the singers in between. Finally, it was Yang Yi's turn. Wilson recognized the man on the stage that he had been thinking about day and night. Yang Yi's appearance was extraordinary. The audience below the stage gave him a round of applause and cheers. However, Wilson preferred Yang Yi's calm attitude. Yang Yi was not as passionate as other singer-songwriters. Even when he was dancing with Dan Hongkuei and the choreographers, his aura did not fluctuate at all. Of course, Wilson still could not understand the song that Yang Yi was singing. Of course, Wilson did not know that there were not many people who could understand the lyrics of the song that he and Dan Hongkuei were singing. Wilson could only admire Yang Yi's stage performance and his singing skills that could be appreciated under any lyrics. He sang very well. Wilson exclaimed in his heart. This temperament is simply the seed of a superstar. After a series of pranks on Dan Hongkuei, Yang Yi began his performance. Under Wilson's surprised gaze, Yang Yi played the violin. The gentle melody began to flow in the hearts of the audience like a trickle. It was a Chinese song. However, this time, Wilson could not help but ask Emo Shaowan, who was next to him, "What song is this?" "When You're Old." Emo Shaowan translated the song title in English and told Wilson, "It's also a song that Yang Yi composed." A good song was to be listened to, and Wilson did not want to interrupt others' enjoyment of the song again. However, Wilson had a lot of thoughts in his mind. He should sing an English song. "I'm Yours" is very good. He actually knows how to play the violin, and he plays it very well. Wilson did not know how to play the violin, but he knew how to appreciate it. Yang Yi can definitely become a superstar that will make people crazy. I can already imagine him performing at the New Year's Eve concert in the Metropolis Times Square. It will definitely be spectacular. Wilson looked at Yang Yi and fantasized in his heart. However, he did not know that Yang Yi was not an ordinary singer. He was the toughest bone in the world. Chapter 781. Yang Yi's performance was, of course, the finale. After he finished singing, the Extreme Challenge charity concert also came to an end. Under Wilson's expectant gaze, Emo Shaowan glanced at her phone and nodded. "Let's go. Mr. Yang is waiting for you backstage." "Here's my chance." Wilson quickly got up, tidied up his suit, and followed Emo Shaowan backstage in high spirits. Not long after, he saw Yang Yi, who had just changed his clothes, walk in. So tall. Only when he got closer did Wilson have a real understanding of Yang Yi's figure. He was considered to be relatively tall, about 1.8 meters tall, but Yang Yi was even taller than him, which was different from his impression of Chinese people. Of course, Wilson was a professional agent. He wouldn't be distracted easily. He took the initiative to greet Yang Yi and introduced himself. "Hello, Mr. Wilson." Yang Yi shook Wilson's hand and smiled calmly. His reaction wasn't very enthusiastic. The situation that Wilson was worried about appeared. In fact, when he first communicated with Emo Shaowan and saw Yang Yi's extraordinary temperament, Wilson had a faint premonition. After all, Wilson was also in the upper-class circle of the metropolis. He had seen people with the same temperament as Yang Yi. They were basically rich and respectable. Would a rich and respectable person be willing to lower his status and join a management company? Of course, Wilson subconsciously concealed this judgment from himself. He hoped that Yang Yi was an ordinary singer, hoping to enter a stage that seemed more advanced than him. But now, it seemed that his initial judgment was right. Wilson still enthusiastically introduced himself and his company's strength in the American music industry to Yang Yi. "If you're willing to join our company and sign a music management contract with our treasure management company, we'll do our best to provide you with the best services, such as image packaging, program promotion, record recording, etc." However, Yang Yi only listened to him politely. If it had been any other situation, Yang Yi would not have agreed to meet Wilson. He had a lot of things to deal with, so the contact from these agencies was basically handled by Emo Shaowan. However, Wilson was the only music manager in America who did not contact Yang Yi or his company through phone calls. He was the only one who chose to travel all the way to China and even found the address of his company in Zhongqing. "Based on your sincerity, I can't possibly let you come all the way here only to be rejected. That's why I asked my agent to bring you to Shanghai to listen to your intentions," Yang Yi said to Wilson with a smile. "But, my friend, I'm sorry. My answer is still no. I will not join any management company in the US. Not only Treasure Management Company, but I will also join all management companies and record companies." Yang Yi made his intentions clear. Wilson was very disappointed. He tried to ask Yang Yi, "May I know why?" "It's because your music is really good, but it's not very popular in the US. It's a pity. I can help you arrange a TV show in the US, like Prada Talk Show. It's the most influential talk show in the US. "Prada Talk Show?" Yang Yi's expression was a little strange. "I remember that one of your contracted singers suffered a huge blow on this show. Mo Shawan was very fast. In just one night, she got someone to find Wilson's file in the US. Of course, these were all public and there was no special confidentiality. Therefore, Yang Yi knew Wilson very well, much better than he knew himself. You know about Boone? Wilson looked at Yang Yi in surprise. Sorry, I have to confirm the authenticity of your identity, Yang Yi said with a smile. Sigh, it's okay. Actually, it's not a secret. It's just that when I signed the contract with Boone, I didn't know that he was a racist. After all, he and I are both white. Wilson said helplessly, after the incident, the company terminated the contract with Boone, and I was punished. Yang Yi knew about all these. He also knew that Wilson's luck was really bad. The artists he had worked with did not bring him any good results. However, Wilson's character was not bad. Yang Yi saw from the information that although his artists were hopeless, Wilson still tried his best to help them fight for all kinds of opportunities until the contract ended. Even so, Yang Yi still rejected Wilson. Sorry, I'm not that interested in the US music industry. Moreover, even if I want to develop in the US, I will choose to open my own company. I'm not an ordinary singer. I believe you already know this. After sending off the disappointed Wilson, Yang Yi went to the lounge next door and saw Murphy, Shi, and Tong Tong. Papa, you sing so well. Cece, who had been watching the show with her mother in the audience, was still very excited at this moment. She waved her little paw and expressed her praise to her father. Is it just that I sing well? Am I not handsome when I play the violin? Yang Yi teased Shi and laughed. It's also super handsome. But, Papa, I don't understand the song that you and Uncle Dan sang. She handed her little hand to Tong Tong, who was leaning over and stretching out his hand. Then she turned her little head and said to her father, Mom said that it's the language of Mom's hometown. Yes, it's Hokkien. If you want to learn, either of us can teach you, Yang Yi said with a smile. I want to learn. She said happily as she jumped around. Learn from your father. He's very patient. Murphy said with a smile, your mother still has to take care of your brother. Yang Yi touched Shi's little head and changed the topic. Shi, did you and your mother donate the books that we brought today? This charity gala didn't sell tickets or collect donations. It only collected books from fans to donate to children in poor areas. Everyone had to bring at least 6 books. Yang Yi certainly couldn't let Shi miss out on such a meaningful event. He had already prepared the donated books for Shi. I donated them. Mom asked my aunt to take me there. There were so many books and the table was so big and so long. She described the scene to her father excitedly. That's very good. You know, by donating these books, many brothers and sisters who can't afford to buy books will be able to read them, Yang Yi said gently to Shi. You're helping them. On the way back to the hotel, Murphy learned that Yang Yi had rejected Wilson. She curiously picked up Wilson's information and read it. After flipping through 2 pages, she saw a familiar word. Wilson is from Texas. Murphy turned to Yang Yi and said, Yang Yi's father-in-law's farm was also in Texas. Yes, but he works in New York. He works in a New York agency, Yang Yi said. Murphy wasn't very interested. She took the opportunity to talk to Yang Yi about going home during the summer vacation. When are we going to go to my father's place? My mother urged me the last time she called. When she graduates from kindergarten, we'll go there. We'll stay with our father for another summer vacation, about 2 months. It's a long time. Don't worry, Yang Yi said with a smile. It's not me who's anxious. It's my parents who are anxious. They haven't held Tong Tong before, Murphy said with some emotion. Soon, in less than 2 weeks. Yang Yi put his arm around Murphy's shoulder and comforted her. Okay. Murphy nodded gently. The car quieted down. After all, it was very late. She was so sleepy that she dozed off next to her father after her excitement. Yang Yi, on the other hand, pondered. That's right. We have to stay in America for 2 months. That's a long time. What can we do in such a long time? At that moment, Wilson's words from before echoed in Yang Yi's ears. Why don't we leave a deep impression on the foreigners in America? Chapter 782. Wilson quietly boarded the plane back to America. However, even though he was 10,000 meters above the ground, he did not feel depressed or disappointed at all. His furrowed brows and pursed lips were merely a manifestation of his uncertain mood. After Yang Yi had rejected him the day before, Wilson thought that he had no chance. However, just as Wilson was about to leave, Yang Yi came looking for him again. After all, the hotel room was arranged by Mo Shaowan. Of course, Yang Yi did not go back on his word. He looked for Wilson because he wanted to poach Wilson from Zhan Bao Entertainment. He wanted to sign a contract with someone else, but in the end, he was poached by someone else? One could imagine how dumbfounded Wilson's expression was at that time. Of course, Yang Yi was not just saying that casually. He wanted to open a small entertainment company in America. He needed an experienced and capable agent like Wilson to help him and Murphy with their work, and itinerary in America. Wilson was not the only one. Yang Yi would also send people to America to poach a few more agents. They were involved in music, movies, and TV dramas. They would form a huge and comprehensive team of agents to serve him and Murphy. Wilson was only the first agent that Yang Yi invited. This idea is crazy. Wilson still felt that it was unbelievable. However, Wilson could see the meaning behind Yang Yi's actions. I'm rich. He had money and talent. Wilson's rationality made him cautious. However, in his heart, he could not deny that he was tempted. After working in Zhan Bao Entertainment for more than 10 years, Wilson also longed for a chance to succeed. He hoped to get a better salary instead of continuing to be an ordinary agent. Otherwise, he would not have flown to China to look for Yang Yi. This could be an opportunity. However, he had not made up his mind yet because he did not know Yang Yi well enough. Yes, after meeting Yang Yi, Wilson realized that the information he knew from some reports was too little. Wilson wasn't sure if Yang Yi was as strong as he claimed. Based on the information we have, he should be able to earn a lot of money from Prison Break, but he should have other sources of income as well. Wilson couldn't sleep at all on the plane. His mind was very active. Right, there's also this. Wilson took out a small memory card that Yang Yi had given him when he said goodbye. Here are all the English songs I've written. Some were sung by me, some by my wife. Some have already been released, and some have only been registered for copyright. Listen to them, and maybe you'll make the right decision. That was what Yang Yi had said at the time. Wilson could hear a strong sense of confidence in his tone. Wilson put on his headphones and plugged them into his portable music player, something similar to an iPod in this world. The music list displayed on the screen included many new songs, including birthday songs and Golden Groove Cups. After looking at it for a while, Wilson thought to himself, let's listen to this. The title of this song was very unique. Wilson didn't know why, but he felt that it suited his current mood. Moreover, the singer of this song was Yang Yi's wife, who was said to be from the same hometown as him. In June, the recording of the first season of The Limit Challenge came to an end. However, the recording of Yang Yi's other show, China's Voice, had just begun. A certain hotel in Rivertown's Binhai district was crowded. Many young people were dressed to the nines, holding registration forms in their hands, pretending to be calm as they stood in the long queue. This was the registration and preliminary audition venue for China's Voice, Jiangnan Station. Perhaps it was because of Yang Yi's influence in Rivertown that the number of people who signed up for this station on the first day was very high. So many people. How many people would have to be screened out? In the queue, 2 guys carrying guitars stood side by side, whispering. Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan were also participating in the audition. It was worth mentioning that although Yang Yi had brought out China's Voice in advance for these 2 fellows, he had not told anyone about this other than Murphy. The program crew, Yang Yi, and the rest did not know that Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan were his friends. Yang Yi did not give them any special privileges either, only suggesting that they sign up for the show. It's just the preliminary audition. Have some confidence in yourselves, Lu Xiaoshu said with a smile as he patted Miao Chuan's shoulder. Fortunately, the submission of the registration forms was fast. Soon, it was Lu Xiaoshu and the rest's turn. Line up properly, don't cut the queue. One by one. A staff member looked at Lu Xiaoshu and the rest and misunderstood. I'm sorry, we're in a group. We're called 1,000 Miles Chuanshu. Lu Xiaoshu pointed at himself and Miao Chuan, who nodded quickly. Group? Isn't this a competition for individual singers? The staff member turned to look at his two colleagues who were in charge of registering and organizing the registration forms and asked in confusion. Yes, it's all for one person, he received a reply. Lu Xiaoshu was a little flustered as he said, No, I saw that in your registration requirements, there's a group. Yang Yi did not know if China's Voice, in his previous life, included groups. Anyway, when Yang Yi explained to the planners, he had included groups. At this moment, there was a commotion. A middle-aged man, surrounded by a few people, walked over calmly. What's the situation here? Director Hong. Several staff members were taken aback. They were both surprised and apprehensive as they reported. Hong Yuman, the veteran music variety show director of Xiongnan TV station, was now the chief director of the production team of China's Voice. In the past 6 months, the production team of China Star Productions had expanded rapidly. Not only had they recruited a large number of cameramen, stage managers, and other frontline staff, they had also hired some experienced directors and producers with high salaries. Hong Yuman had been poached by Yun Yongfeng from his rival Xiongnan TV station. Although he had not been at China Star Productions for long, Hong Yuman quickly adjusted his state of mind and led the team to start producing the show. Of course, he did not have to do it himself, but Hong Yuman still decided to work hard. He tried his best to patrol every station for a day, urging everyone to be alert and find problems early and solve them as soon as possible. Today, Hong Yuman was patrolling River City. He did not expect to encounter such a problem as soon as he arrived. There's no problem with groups, it's written in the rules. Hong Yuman glanced at Lu Xiaoshu and the rest but did not mind. He waved his hand and said, Move quickly and review the information as soon as possible. Don't let the people behind you wait too long. With that, Hong Yuman turned and left. As he walked, he patted the shoulder of the person in charge of the station and said with a smile, The first day's workload is heavier. Ask the hotel to provide good coffee and tea for our people. This is a logistical problem. Understood. Director Hong. Also, I'll ask them to read the rules a few more times. There can't be a situation where the contestants know the rules better than us again, the person in charge said smartly. Hong Yuman only nodded. Back at Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan's side, they finally handed in the registration form without any mishap and went to their team's waiting room as instructed. Chapter 783. Before participating in the auditions, Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan did not know the rules of China's The Voice's auditions. They subconsciously thought that the auditions would be similar to other shows, with a few judges sitting on the stage and the contestants going up to sing. But when it was their turn, Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan were led to a specially arranged meeting room. Only then did they see the grand scale of the auditions. The meeting room was separated by a curtain that was half the height of the wall. No one could see what was going on behind the curtain, but on the other side of the curtain, there were 2 cameras recording. Of course, the judge behind the curtain still spoke. He had to announce the rules. Later, Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan would be singing the song they had prepared without any accompaniment. They could not use their guitars even if they had brought them along. The 3 judges would listen to them sing from behind the curtain. Contestants who received 2 or more passes would pass the preliminary auditions. No wonder the show's introduction said that the auditions were based on good singing, not good looks or good stories. Now, the judges could not see the contestants' faces and would not give the contestants a chance to explain their names or experiences. It was a blind audition. The auditions were based on their voices. Lu Xiaoshu and Mao Chuan liked this rule very much because they were not handsome. Moreover, after a year of settling down, the two of them had also honed their singing skills under the guidance of Jin Yingming and Yang Yi. They were more confident about this. But Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan were not used to not being able to use their guitars. They were nervous for a while. Without further ado, time was tight. Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan took a deep breath and started singing. They sang folk songs that were already famous. Although it would have been better to sing their own songs, it was not the right time yet. Plus, they sang songs that the judges were familiar with, so it was safer. 3 minutes later, time was up. Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan stopped singing. A staff member pulled open the curtain and the 3 judges appeared in front of them, holding up their boards. 3 passes. It was just the preliminary auditions. This result was not something to be proud of. But Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan, who were so nervous just now, heaved a sigh of relief and smiled excitedly. "You're a group, right?" One of the judges put down his sign and said, "You sang well. Keep up the good work." These judges were hired through Beijing television stations' connections and were experienced music producers in the industry. Although they could not compare to the 4 coaches behind them, they were people who understood music and the music market very well. Furthermore, they were very picky. Under their control, the auditions would definitely screen out many people whose voices and singing quality did not pass. Receiving their praise, Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan could be considered to be in a good mood. However, Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan, who did not know their identities, could only nod and thank them in a half-surprised and half-confused manner. Carrying their guitars on their backs, Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan looked at each other and sighed. The format of this program is really interesting. Lu Xiaoshu laughed and teased, "Fortunately, they don't choose based on looks. Otherwise, we might not have been able to pass so many tests. We've only passed the preliminary audition. We still have to go through 5 trials and kill 6 generals." Miao Chuan waved his hand blade and made a few chirping noises. Perhaps it was because he was happy that Miao Chuan, this wooden fellow, started joking. "Then let's go through 5 trials and kill 6 generals. After all, we're people who have undergone so much training and toughening. Why would we be afraid of such a small challenge?" Lu Xiaoshu said confidently. The auditions for China's The Voice were held simultaneously in every provincial capital city in the country. After just 1 day, the media was already reporting about the program. Among the reports, some were arranged by China Star Production to create hype, but there were also quite a few true reports. After all, Yang Yi had successfully produced the Limit Challenge, the most popular variety show in the first half of the year. When he launched a new variety show, it naturally attracted a lot of attention. There were even quite a number of reporters who filled in the application list and personally experienced the auditions for China's The Voice. Therefore, the auditions for China's The Voice were soon exposed by the media. The program's producers did not go back on their word and the new blind audition rules received a lot of praise. Of course, there were also many voices of doubt. Is China's The Voice really a blind audition or a show? Lack of criteria, how can the auditions be fair? This report questioned the selection criteria of the judges behind the curtains. It was only a pass or a fail. Overly subjective evaluations would cause many of the voice to fail in the auditions. Singing behind the curtains, how can the quality of the voice be guaranteed? This media outlet definitely did not go to the auditions themselves and only made their judgment based on the words of others. They did not know that the so-called curtains were not the kind of curtains that completely covered the auditions. The sound could be transmitted through the space above the curtains. Other than these doubts, there were also media teasing. When the TV broadcast of China's The Voice, the scene would definitely be like this. The judges and contestants would be separated by curtains, and both sides would be having fun in the 2 worlds behind the curtains. Obviously, the excitement of the program would be greatly reduced. However, China Star Production did not directly answer this question. They would not reveal all their cards before the program was broadcast. It would only be interesting if they left some surprises behind. However, within 2 days, the media outlet reported that Chan Yijie would be joining the first season of China's The Voice as one of the 4 coaches. The resourceful reporter even received confirmation from Chan Yijie's manager. Chen Yijie was going to be a coach? Let's not talk about why he was going to be a coach and not a judge. The netizens were all excited. Although Chan Yijie had not officially entered the music industry in China, his fame and status in the Chinese music industry were unquestionable. Otherwise, when he held concerts in China, all of them would not be full houses. With such a top-notch singer, who could even be considered a god of songs, as a coach, China's The Voice's level immediately rose. More and more people signed up for the auditions. Everyone wanted to ride on the starlight. However, there were also smart media outlets who quickly guessed. Since one of the coaches had chosen Chan Yijie, then the other 3 coaches would not be of low importance. Even if they were not gods of songs, they would at least be seniors who had dominated the music industry before. However, to hire these people as coaches, the remuneration would be very impressive. Some people guessed that Chan Yijie's worth was worth at least 30 million. Although it was not a simple addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, the remuneration of these 4 coaches should be more than 100 million. This did not include the manpower and resources used for the nationwide auditions. Was China Star Production that rich? It was true. The media did not guess wrongly. Although Chan Yijie was invited by Yang Yi to join the show and his remuneration was discounted to only 20 million for a season, the budget of the entire show was as high as 200 million. Of course, this money was forked out by the sponsors, and the manufacturers had more information than the media. Just the first season's title sponsorship alone was snatched up by a mobile phone manufacturer for 150 million. Originally, Yang Yi wanted to leave it to Sahara Publishing House or Micro Broadcasting, but after seeing how crazy the other party was, he gave up on that idea. Other than the title sponsorship, there were also a lot of advertisements and product placements for sale. Beijing Television Station and China Star Production were naturally willing to spend money on this show. Of course, to Yang Yi, all these were just fleeting clouds. He left a game for others to enjoy while he leisurely prepared to attend Shi's kindergarten graduation ceremony. Chapter 784. June 26th was the big day for Shi to graduate from Springfield Kindergarten. The weather today was very good. The bright and beautiful sun shone through the dense treetops on the side of the road, leaving specks of golden light on the ground. A gentle breeze blew through the busy streets, as if sweeping away the irritation in people's hearts at this moment. A tall Hummer SUV stopped by the roadside. After a while, Yang Yi, who was wearing a casual suit, got out of the driver's seat, went around to the other side, and carried Shi, who was sitting in the child safety seat. She was wearing a new sapphire blue dress today. It had an elegant white lotus leaf petal collar, and a contrasting white silk ribbon with gold edges tied into a beautiful bow under the collar. It looked very much in line with the current popular college style. With her hair tied up in a bun and the same sapphire blue hair ribbon with white spots, the elegant, beautiful, playful, and cute little girl appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Murphy also got out of the car with Tong Tong in her arms. Yang Yi took the 2 bags from her hands. The family chatted and laughed as they walked to Springfield Kindergarten. Along the way, many of Shi's classmates and their parents greeted Shi and Yang Yi. The adults all praised Shi for her beautiful dress today. For example, Wang Shijuan's father, who used to be friends only after fighting, praised, "Now I feel that Shi is already a big girl." Yang Yi also smiled and praised Wang Xiyun. Politeness demands politeness, and they talked cheerfully and wittily. But there were also some who spoiled the fun. When they were about to reach the kindergarten, a few reporters who somehow found out that today was Shi's graduation day were already waiting there. As soon as they saw Yang Yi and Murphy appear, they excitedly surrounded them. "Yang Yi, when will The Shawshank Redemption start shooting? Is the great director Wu Yian as strict as the rumors say? Will you play a role in it? Murphy, you haven't appeared in front of your fans for a long time. They are very anxious for you. When will you make a comeback?" "Murphy, it's said that one of the 4 coaches of China's Voice has been reserved for you. Is the news true?" Yang E. Not only did the reporters not stop asking questions, but they also tried their best to squeeze forward. They did not care about other people's safety, and their microphones were waving in front of Tong Tong. Murphy used her body to protect Tong Tong, while she squeezed by her father's side, like a boat floating in the sea. Yang E frowned, his face turning gloomy. Why were the reporters so reckless today? If not for this, Yang E might have answered a few simple questions before leaving. But since then he would not have let them. Make way. His voice was filled with anger. Of course, Yang E was not just joking. He stretched out two strong arms, like a bulldozer, to protect Mo Fei and Cici, and pushed away all the reporters on both sides in front of them. 3 reporters stood in front of them, while 2 reporters flanked them on both sides. However, their alliance was like a wall made of paper, easily broken with a single poke. Yang E stretched out his arms. They wanted to resist, but they realized that they could not withstand Yang Yi's terrifying strength and were forced to retreat. Hey, hey, hey! There was a commotion. In the blink of an eye, Yang E cleared the path in front of him and led Murphy and Shi through the entrance of Springfield Kindergarten. The unwilling reporters wanted to chase after them, but the security guards blocked their way. Yang E, it's fine if you don't want to be interviewed, but why did you hit people? A reporter shouted angrily, trying to get Yang Yi's attention and get some response. However, Yang E was different from other celebrities. He was not worried about the reporters writing nonsense. He and Murphy walked into the building with the children without looking back and disappeared from the reporter's sight. I've never seen such a tasteless celebrity. He actually hit people. The reporters looked away helplessly, and someone complained angrily. The other reporters looked at him as if he was an idiot, but did not say anything. The so-called hitting people was just a label that they put on Yang E. Now that he was gone, what was the point of saying it? How could they not know in their hearts whether or not they had hit someone? However, Yang E was really strong. The 5 of them could not stop him, which was a little embarrassing. Since they could not interview Yang E, they could only disperse, find a nearby restaurant to rest, and wait for Yang E to come out and try again, or give up the interview and go back with their cameras. The small disturbance at the door did not affect Yang E and the others' happy mood today. Even she was used to the appearance of those reporters. Anyway, with her father, the big meat shield in front of her, she was not afraid at all. Papa, are we going to give this gift to Teacher Mu, Teacher Shen, and Teacher Kai? She asked as she walked up the stairs obediently with her father holding her hand. Perhaps it was because she was wearing a beautiful little dress, but today she became a lot more ladylike. She did not take the lead and skipped in front. Yes, but there's no rush. We'll see what happens. Yang Yi smiled slightly. She is here with her parents. At the door of the big class, Teacher Mu, who was also dressed up today, greeted Shi with a smile. Hello, Teacher Mu. Shi was beside her father and greeted Teacher Mu obediently. Go and hug Teacher Mu, Murphy said with a smile. Because she did not want to affect Shi's mood, Murphy did not say the last half of her words. I'm afraid it will be very difficult to see Teacher Mu in the future. Teacher Mu squatted down and hugged the little girl who opened her small arms. Shi's small body was as soft as her little dress. Hugging this soft little girl, no matter who it was inevitable that thousands of tenderness and love would rise in their hearts. Teacher Mu liked every child in the class, but if she had to say which child she liked and admired the most, it would be Shi. This kind and cute little girl was smart and helpful. Which teacher wouldn't like her? Teacher Mu had a lot of emotions in her heart, but when it came to her mouth, only gentle advice was left. Shi, in the future, when you go to primary school, you have to study hard and make more good friends. Then, when you have the chance in the future, come back and visit Teacher Mu, okay? She could not understand the emotions of the adults at the moment, but she could still feel Teacher Mu's love and care for her. The little girl smiled sweetly and said, I know. Teacher Mu, let me tell you, Papa, Mom, and I have made a gift for you. Hearing this, Yang Yi took out a simple box from his backpack and handed it to Shi. Chapter 785. You even prepared a gift for me? Teacher Moo was a little surprised. She hugged the box and smiled sweetly at Teacher Moo. Hee, that's right, Teacher Moo. I made it with Papa and Mom. Papa and I even went to the seaside to dig up seashells. We dug up a bucket, so many. Teacher Moo listened patiently. Finally, she saw she take out the brush holder she made. It was very stunning at first glance. Although it was still made of curled bamboo mats, a lot of effort had been put into the decoration of the outer layer. It was done exquisitely and beautifully. Murphy used pink lace to glue a circle around the edge of the top opening of the brush holder. She even carefully pinched the wavy curls, making it look like undulating pink waves. There were 2 rows of fine words written vertically on the front. Yang Yi had helped Shi write this, but Shi's signature was written by herself. Other than the words, on the other side, there was a drawing of a beautiful sheep smiling happily while covering its face. The beautiful sheep's red face and big watery eyes were very cute. However, the beautiful sheep's white and curly hair was replaced by white, textured shells. This reflected the theme of the handicraft even more. At the bottom, there was a circle of smooth and delicate shells, just like the beautiful sheep stepping on a smooth pebbled road. It was worth mentioning that there were some plastic grass and small plastic trees on it, which made it look even more lively and interesting. This was drawn by my papa. I painted it and stuck this shell. Teacher Moo, sticking this shell made my hand sticky. She happily told Teacher Moo about her contribution. It's really beautiful. Teacher likes it very much. You did it very carefully. Teacher Moo was still squatting. She hugged Shi and said gently, Shi, who wrote this poem? This was written by my papa. I don't know how to write so many words, Shi explained honestly. She knows how to recite this poem. Shi, why don't you recite this poem with teacher? Murphy suggested with a smile. Yeah. She readily agreed. She even said in a sweet voice, Spring fills the mountains and green fields, peaches and plums fight for the spring dew and smile. East, west, north, south, east, and west, spring is always there, only Sherfu's grace pays attention to these places. Cici recited without missing a single word and with a clear articulation. It was very similar to the rhythm of reciting poems that her father had taught her before. There was even a cadence in the middle. It looked like she had practiced for a long time at home, but in fact, she hadn't. Yang Yi had only taught her once or twice, and the little girl could memorize it. Her memory was indeed very good. After listening to she recite the poem, Teacher Moo, who was already very touched, became more emotional at this moment. She hugged Shi and said with red eyes, Thank you, Shi. You're so great. Teacher is a little reluctant to let you graduate. Shi, who was in Teacher Moo's arms, didn't feel the sadness of separation. She looked at her father with her big bright eyes. There was a happy smile in her eyes, as if to tell her father, Teacher Moo likes my gift very much. After listening to the kindergarten director's words and the 3 teachers' summary, Yang Yi received Shi's kindergarten souvenir album. The souvenir album contained the selected photos of Shi's class in the past 2 years, some articles and memories of the 3 teachers, and so on. Of course, a souvenir album couldn't contain all the photos. There was also a CD inserted in the title page of the souvenir album. There were more photos and video recordings of activities. It could be said that the kindergarten had done a very good job in this aspect. These things, he would slowly look at them when he went back. This time, all the parents and children gathered together. The most important thing, of course, was to take a group photo as a souvenir. After taking the group photo, Wu Yu suggested that Shi and the other 5 children take another group photo together. Then, there were all kinds of group photos. There were photos of parents and children, photos of children, and photos of children in pairs. Yang Yi, the photographer, was very busy. Shi, I want to take a photo with you. Wang Shijuan, who was next to them, ran over. He first looked at Yang Yi timidly, and then said to Shi. She was very happy today. She didn't stop smiling. Wang Shijuan's request naturally wouldn't be rejected. The little girl nodded and said, "Okay. Then you all stand under this tree. I'll take a photo for you." Yang Yi held the camera and directed. Wang Shijuan was a little naughty, but he was quite honest when taking photos. He stood side by side with Shi, and he didn't hold Shi's hand like Lan Xin and the others. Although he was a little uncomfortable, he still raised 2 fingers and smiled, revealing his mouth that was missing 2 front teeth. After Wang Shijuan finished taking the photo, before he had time to say anything, his sister ran over. "Wang Shijuan, what are you doing?" Wang Xiun asked loudly. "I'm taking a photo with Shi," Wang Shijuan said. "Then I also want to take a photo with Shi," Wang Xiun said as if she wanted to snatch her brother's toy. Well, Yang Yi took another photo of Shi and Wang Xiun. After the siblings left, Shi excitedly pulled her father's arm, wanting to see the results of the photo. Unexpectedly, another boy ran over. "Shi, I want to take a photo with you." "Can I?" "Okay." Yang Yi and Murphy looked at each other and smiled bitterly. They didn't expect their daughter to be so popular. She took a photo with almost every child in her class. However, there was a small episode in the middle. Little Belle, who was Ding Ling, took her father's hand and came over to take a photo with Shi. After taking a photo with Shi, she looked at Yang Yi eagerly. "Uncle Yang, can I take a photo with you? There's something between us?" Although Yang Yi and Murphy were also asked to take a photo together, those were parents who chased after celebrities. The children all went to take photos with Shi. Yang Yi froze for a moment and smiled. Of course. Ding Ling's father took over the camera. When Yang Yi taught him the position of the buttons on the SLR, he smiled and said to Yang Yi, "Ding Ling has always liked you. Last time, she went to your studio with her classmates to record a song. When she came back, she kept talking about how good you are. Even I, as her father, was a little jealous." Yang Yi touched his nose and smiled awkwardly. When taking photos, Yang Yi also felt Ding Ling's love for him. Yang Yi hugged her, and she also hugged Yang Yi's neck, revealing a rare bright smile. Yang Yi could actually understand why Ding Ling liked him. She doesn't have a mother, so she's quite pitiful. Her father is probably the typical kind of father who doesn't know how to cook and is busy with work. Yang Yi looked at the lively figures of the children and whispered to Murphy. Perhaps it was because Yang Yi, who could cook and had a good temper, satisfied her desire for the role of a mother, so Ding Ling liked Yang Yi as if she wanted to have a mother. That's quite pitiful. You should persuade her father to find her a mother. Murphy's soft heart was touched. I'm not familiar with her father, and we haven't spoken much before. So forget it. This is her family's matter, let them deal with it themselves. Yang Yi sighed softly and shook his head. After the commotion, Springfield Kindergarten returned to normal. After leaving Springfield Kindergarten, Shi followed her father and embarked on a new journey. Chapter 786. San Francisco International Airport, California. Mo Xiaowan, who was wearing sunglasses, sat on a chair in the waiting room. Her long legs were exposed under her tight skirt. Even though she had an Asian face, her hot body and proud temperament attracted many people's attention. Sister Xiaowan, Sister AI, said that there are media reports that Mr. Yang hit a reporter. The assistant beside her came over with her phone. It had to be said that other than her own secretary, Mo Xiaowan had a few assistants with her. It was not that she was more famous than Yang Yi and Murphy, but these assistants were originally arranged for Yang Yi and Murphy. There were makeup artists, hairstylists, personal assistants, and so on. However, Yang Yi and Murphy were more eccentric. They did not like to bring a large group of people with them. Even if they went out to record a show, they preferred to be alone as a family. At most, they would ask Mo Xiaowan to come along. This way, they would be less of a target. Therefore, Mo Xiaowan could only bring these assistants with her. When Yang Yi and the rest needed them, it would be convenient for them to be sent over. Mo Xiaowan took off her sunglasses and glanced at the report on her assistant's phone. She nodded lightly and said, "I know about this. Those reporters almost bumped into the child, so Yang Yi pushed them away. He did not hit them. He was just protecting the child. Ask AI and the rest to clarify on micro-broadcasting. If necessary, send a lawyer's letter to those news agencies." The assistant nodded and took out her phone to deal with work. "Is there any trouble? Do you need my help?" A white man sitting opposite her asked. Mo Xiaowan nodded at him and smiled. "Thank you, Wilson. It's just a small matter in the country." Yes, the man sitting opposite Mo Xiaowan was Wilson. Mo Xiaowan came to the United States early this time to help Yang Yi with the matters of opening a small company in the United States. Wilson had already resigned from his job at Treasure Management and became Yang Yi's first manager in the United States. They didn't have to wait too long before Yang Yi's family arrived at San Francisco International Airport. Among the crowd that came out one after another, Yang Yi, who was holding Cece, who had not yet woken up, and Mo Fei, who was holding little Momo, who had slept and eaten enough, and was looking around curiously, appeared in Mo Xiaojuan's vision. After a simple greeting, Yang Yi looked at Wilson, who was standing behind Mo Xiaowan and looked a little nervous. Wilson was still more eye-catching. He quickly said what he had practiced in private many times. "Yang, welcome to the United States." "Thank you, and welcome to join us." Yang Yi smiled and shook hands with Wilson. Mo Xiaowan handed the luggage receipt to the only two male assistants in the team and asked them to help collect the luggage. Then, she introduced their situation to Yang Yi. The company's registration is now complete. However, Wilson is the only one. We still need to wait for the headhunting company to find other candidates. We can take it slow. Anyway, we will be in the United States for 2 months. Yang Yi nodded. The company was indeed just a startup. However, other than the people, everything else was already in place. During this time, Wilson followed Mo Xiaowan and saw how rich Yang Yi was. Mo Xiaowan rented an entire floor of an office building in the bustling business district of LA City. She also bought 6 cars in one go, ranging from a normal car to a nanny van and a limousine for attending events. Of course, Yang Yi and the rest did not have the time to inspect the company in LA. After resting for a night in San Francisco, Mo Xiaowan accompanied them on the plane to Texas. It had to be said that the domestic aviation in the United States was very convenient. From San Francisco on the west coast to Dallas in Texas in the middle of the country, it only took 3 hours for the plane to take off and land. Grandpa. As soon as they got off the plane, Shi, who had been looking around, was the first to see Mo Henian holding a sign in the crowd. She was so excited that she shook her little but in her father's arms and could not wait to tell him. They had not seen each other for a year, and Mo Henian had not changed much. The old man was still wearing his wide-brimmed cowboy hat, plain white t-shirt, and jeans. However, Zhou Mengyu, who was standing behind him, was dressed more elegantly. The combination of colors and styles gave people a sense of fashion. Even though she was old, she was still like a lotus flower quietly blooming in the crowd. It was admirable. She still liked her grandpa. When they met, she smiled sweetly at Mo Henian. She opened her arms and jumped into her grandpa's arms from her father's arms. Mo Henian hugged his granddaughter and looked at his grandson in his daughter's arms. He chuckled. When he faced Yang Yi, he was much more amiable. Zhou Mengyu was completely attracted by Tong Tong. She did not even care about Yang Yi and Mo Xiaojuan's greetings. She responded casually and stretched out her arms to Tong Tong with a smile. "Hua Hua, let Grandma hug you." However, Tong Tong was more shy than before. He was no longer like when he was young and could not be fooled with a pacifier. When he saw his grandmother, who he did not know, reaching out her arms, he turned his head and hid in the depths of his mother's arms. "Let Grandma hug you, okay?" Murphy persuaded softly. Of course, Tong Tong would not reply. He still did not know how to speak. Therefore, Murphy looked at his expression and passed him into his mother's arms. Zhou Mengyu hugged her grandson. The little guy was chubby. When she saw him, Zhou Mingyu's face lit up. However, Tong Tong did not like to be hugged by strangers. He reacted quickly. He turned his head to look at his mother. When he realized that his mother had no intention of taking him back, he pouted and blinked his eyes. Large drops of tears fell from his eyes. "Io, why are you crying? Don't cry. Good boy." Zhou Mingyu quickly comforted him. However, it was useless. Tong Tong opened his mouth and cried. He was so sad that it was as if he was really abandoned by his mother. Zhou Mingyu helplessly returned Tong Tong to Murphy. Miraculously, after returning to his mother's embrace and being coaxed by her, the little fellow's crying stopped within a few seconds. He just pursed his lips in grievance. Within half a minute, his tears also stopped, but there was still some lingering fear in his heart. Little brother doesn't like to be hugged by other people. Papa and I can do it. She explained to her grandmother in her grandfather's arms. There's no such thing. He's trying now. He's not familiar with Grandma. Mom, you can go back and play with him for a few days. After you're familiar with him, he'll be happy to be hugged by you. Murphy said with a smile. It's okay. It's good that you're back. Stay at home for a while. Zhou Mingyu happily held Murphy and Yang Yi's hands and said, phone calls and video calls. Now that technology was so advanced, Mo Fei had a lot of communication with her family. However, there was still a long distance between them. Now that Zhou Mingyu saw Murphy and saw that she and Yang Yi were doing well, she was relieved. All right, stop wasting time here. If you have anything to say it when we get home. Mo Henian waved his hand. Chapter 787. His father-in-law's farm was not in the cow market. It was in the west of the cow market, near a small town called the Grassland. It was similar to the movies. The small town did not have tall buildings like the cities. Most of the buildings were made of wood. However, even though it was a small town, it had all kinds of facilities. There was also a small hospital. There were even 2 modern supermarkets. These supermarkets did not only serve the residents of the small town. The people from the surrounding farms would also drive their pickup trucks here to make purchases. There were no vegetable markets in America. Food, daily necessities, farm tools, and farming machinery could all be bought in the large supermarkets. Hey, Mo. Mo Henian drove the jeep through the town. A middle-aged man dressed like a cowboy recognized him. He put his hands in his mouth and whistled loudly to greet him. Hey, Beria, why are you here? Mo Henian nodded to the man and slowed down the car. I'm here to meet my son-in-law. It's his first time here. Murphy turned to Yang Yi when she heard the commotion. That is Uncle Beria. He is the owner of the farm next door. He is Latino. I heard that his ancestors came here 400 years ago. Your son-in-law? Who is he? That Beria laughed heartily at Mo Henian. Hello. Yang Yi rolled down the car window and greeted him. Uncle Beria, my name is Yang Yi. You can call me Leon. Not bad, not bad. You are a handsome young man. Beria sat on the back of the horse and gave Yang Yi a thumbs up. Gracias. Yang Yi smiled. You can speak Spanish? Beria was surprised. Yang Yi changed to Spanish and said, Yes, I learned a little in the past. He was being humble. This language was similar to Japanese. Yang Yi was proficient in it. Not only could he speak and listen, he could also write some simple articles in Spanish. The admiration in Beria's eyes for Yang Yi became even stronger. He also asked in Spanish, Where are Mo Fei and Xiao Sisi? Are they back? We're back with our second child, Yang Yi said with a smile. Murphy couldn't understand Spanish, but she still heard her name. So she stuck her head out beside Yang Yi and greeted him with a smile. Hello, Uncle Beria. Murphy, long time no see. Your husband told me that you have a second child? Beria switched back to English. With a smile, He squeezed the horse's belly and let the horse slow down to get closer to the jeep. A small farming town had its own advantages. There were not many people in big grassland town. Especially the people in the farm, almost all of them knew each other. Along the way, Yang Yi was constantly greeted by Mo Henian. Only then did Yang Yi realize his father-in-law's status here. However, what made Yang Yi even happier was Mo Henian's attitude towards him. Although Mo Henian still spoke bluntly to him, he still actively introduced him to his friends. It could be seen that Mo Henian still admired him. It was just that Mo Henian didn't want to express it. Soon, the jeep arrived at Mo Henian's farm. Yang Yi held Shi's hand and got off the jeep. They were warmly welcomed. The nanny, the cook, and a group of cowboys happily surrounded them, cheering and singing songs to welcome them. There was also a cowboy playing the guitar. Although the standard of the guitar wasn't high, the coquettish posture made people unable to hold back their laughter. "Welcome, young master." After singing, the Chinese cook took the lead and shouted. A group of white and black cowboys laughed and shouted with a strange accent in Chinese, "Guangyud." What a group of passionate people! Yang Yi was infected by their enthusiasm. When they were singing, he pulled Shi and joined them in their strange dance. Thank you, thank you." Yang Yi cupped his hands and smiled. "You can call me Leon. You don't have to speak Chinese. I can communicate in English." Murphy joined in with Tong Tong. When the nanny, cook, and other females saw Tong Tong, they surrounded her lovingly and asked her all sorts of questions. "Little Shi, do you still remember me?" An old cowboy asked Shi with a smile. They hadn't seen each other for 3 years. If it were other children, they would have already forgotten everything that happened 3 years ago. But even if she still remembered, she still felt very unfamiliar. The little girl hid behind her father's legs in embarrassment. She wasn't very sure and said weakly, "Are you Grandpa Ford? You really remember? What about me? Do you still remember me?" A black guy who was as tall as a bamboo pole asked loudly. Although he was tall, he was actually only a 16-year-old boy. In the past 2 years, he had only grown taller but not fatter. This time, she couldn't recognize him. The little girl stood there awkwardly, not knowing what to do. "I'm Greg," the black guy said anxiously. The few black cowboys beside him all laughed. "Greg, you're too ugly. Who can recognize you?" "Big brother Greg." She remembered. This time, she finally remembered the big brother who used to play with her. But she still looked at her father awkwardly. "But Big Brother Greg isn't this tall." "I'm growing taller," Greg shouted. "Little Shi, you've grown a lot taller too." All right. "Greg, have you helped me feed the horse?" Mo Henian's heart ached for his granddaughter who was tired from the journey, so he stood up and glared at Greg, who was a little too mischievous. "Didn't you say we can have a day off today?" Greg shrunk his neck. Although he was still stubborn, he only said that resentfully and turned to run away. "Little Shi, I'll come and play with you later." Ford was the leader of the cowboys, and he also called for the cowboys to go back to work. Yang Yi and the others could finally enjoy a moment of free time and admire Mo Henian's residence. F***CK. As soon as he walked in, Yang Yi was stunned. He couldn't help but exclaim in his heart. At this moment, he felt as if he had returned to Gusu. The huge courtyard was designed like a garden, and it felt as if Mo Henian had moved a garden from Gusu over. The flowing water, small bridge, stone carvings, window carvings, and the house with white walls and black tiles gave people a retro feeling. Compared to his father-in-law's house, his own villa and courtyard were simply slums. Who was hired to design this house? "It's the work of a master." Yang Yi couldn't help but exclaim. He didn't know that he had inadvertently flattered his father-in-law. Mo Henian, who was walking in front, slightly raised the corner of his mouth, and then curled his lips. This was a kind of expression that showed that he was proud, but he didn't want others to know that he was proud. "It was my papa who designed it." Murphy smiled and said, He used to be an architect, but later changed his profession. Inside, seeing the modern interior decoration and thinking about the classical architecture and garden design outside, Yang Yi's admiration for Mo Henian was really like a torrential river. "You guys go to the room to tidy up, and come down to eat after changing your clothes." Zhou Mengyu smiled and arranged for them. "Yang Yi, when you come to our place, you don't have to think about cooking. We have people who specialize in cooking. Come over and have a good vacation with Murphy." "Okay, I'll listen to your arrangements." Yang Yi nodded. "See, my mom is good to you, right?" Murphy bumped Yang Yi's shoulder and giggled. When Mo Henian saw this, he said unhappily, "What vacation?" "Yang Yi, when you're free, come work with me and herd the cows. You've always lived in the city, and now you should experience the life of an American farmer." Chapter 788. Of course, Mo Henian was just scaring Yang Yi. This was his son-in-law's first visit, and he didn't really ask Yang Yi to herd cows or do farm work. In fact, Mo Henian took Shi for a stroll during the day and came back to play with Tong Tong at night. He had so much fun that he didn't have time to make things difficult for Yang Yi. "Shi, Grandpa will take you to ride a horse today, okay?" The next morning, Mo Henian suggested with a smile. "This year, Grandpa bought a batch of ponies. Your Grandpa Ford has already trained them. You can go and pick a pony that you like." "Really?" The little girl looked at her grandfather in surprise. Shi also liked horses because they looked very beautiful. Compared to other livestock except for little sheep, horses with big faces and elegant long hair were more in line with Shi's aesthetic standards. "Really?" Mo Henian nodded affirmatively and looked serious. "There are all kinds of colors. Grandpa wanted to help you pick one, but I think you'll find one that you like." "Ride a horse." Murphy heard and said hesitantly, "Dad, if you want to teach Shi how to ride a horse, it's best to let Yang Yi watch over her." Although Murphy had learned how to ride a horse from Mo Henian before, Shi was still young after all. Murphy still trusted Yang Yi. "Why do you want him? Is your old man too old to lead a horse?" Mo Henian felt a sense of distrust and asked angrily with a glare. But in the end, Mo Henian still brought Yang Yi with him. They went to the stable together with Shi. In the past, Mo Henian's farm didn't raise ponies. The horses that the cowboys rode were all adult horses. However, the price of horses had been rising in the past 2 years, so Mo Henian bought a batch of ponies to raise them and sell them for a good price. "Wow, so many horses. But Grandpa, why aren't there any ponies?" Cece walked into the very clean stable. She was both happy and scared. She held her father's hand tightly and looked at the tall horses in the pen one after another. Compared to her small stature, these horses were all very tall. "These are all ponies. They're only a little over a year old and haven't matured yet," Mo Henian explained. Yang Yi could tell that these horses were indeed still very small. From their appearance, they were one size smaller than adult horses. Their bodies were also thinner and weaker. They did not have the muscular feeling of adult horses. When someone arrived, these young ponies came over curiously. Shi looked at these behemoths, and held her father's hand, not daring to get close. However, Shi soon saw her grandfather holding a long carrot and walking towards a yellow pony. The little girl's eyes widened. She was surprised to see the yellow pony snorting softly and coming over. It first sniffed, then opened its mouth and ate the carrot that her grandfather handed to it. Mo Henian stroked its forehead, but the yellow fat pony did not respond. It only cared about eating. "Is it fun?" Mo Henian turned around and smiled at Shi. He encouraged, "Shi, do you want to try too?" "But I'm scared. I'm scared that it will bite me." She looked at the pony eating the carrot with envy, but the fear in her heart did not disappear. The current situation was that they did not know who was watching. A group of ponies gathered in front of the stable, breathing heavily as if they had smelled the carrot. They paced around restlessly. Although horses had poor eyesight, The way they raised their heads and looked at the humans was as if they were the spectators. Under Mo Henian's encouragement, she finally mustered her courage. Holding a carrot, she walked towards a white pony. However, she wanted her father to hold her other hand. With her father by her side, she would have some confidence to approach these behemoths. Feeding a horse was a magical feeling, especially when this white pony used a pair of gentle and weak eyes to look at her. She felt her little heart pounding. She liked it a lot, but she was also a little scared. Why is it looking at me? Does it like me too? She mumbled softly. That's right. It likes you too, Yong-yi said gently. The white pony opened its mouth and bit the carrot with its thick lips. Although they were far away, she was still frightened and hurriedly dropped the carrot. Before the carrot fell out of the stable, the white pony had already caught it in its mouth. It ate it with relish. Papa, it ate the carrot I gave it. She did not feel regretful. Instead, she turned her head to look at her father happily. You try to touch it too, Yang-yi demonstrated. He gently touched the pony's forehead to encourage the little girl. She mustered her courage and timidly touched the big long face. However, there was no problem. The white pony chewed on the carrot and did not forget the person who dug the well while drinking water. It even obediently came over and let the little girl touch it. Wow! She did not know how to describe it. Her face was full of joy. The feeling of touching a pony was wonderful. She also felt a sense of accomplishment when she overcame her fear. At the same time, in California, in the OK City across the sea from San Francisco, several people carrying cameras approached a bearded man who had just gotten out of a car and was about to walk to his house. The person in the lead said, Jermaine Lee, you need to start running away immediately. This was not a Chinese person. In the United States, Lee was also a relatively common surname. Jermaine Lee was also a white man. So sudden? The man who looked to be in his 40s was a little surprised. However, he did not waste any time. He quickly quickened his pace and ran home. At his house, his partner, Hill, was also notified. Hill was younger than Jermaine. He was Jermaine's relative and was temporarily living with Jermaine. You two have 1 hour. After 1 hour, the hunters will start chasing after you, the visitor said ruthlessly. Jermaine and Hill did not say anything. Before this, they already knew the rules of the game. So, they quickly packed up their things and said goodbye to their families. After that, Jermaine and Hill got into the car that they had prepared. With only one cameraman, they hurriedly left the OK City. Yes, it looked like they were running away. In fact, they were indeed running away. There was a hunter team made up of more than 30 experienced investigators from intelligence agencies, retired police officers, retired special forces, and other tracking experts. They would be tracking them down from every nook and cranny for the next 28 days. Of course, this was just an American reality show called Undercover Tracking. This show had just been designed, and this was only the first season of the show. It was different from the reality show that Yang-yi and the rest produced. The American reality show did not invite any celebrities. Instead, it was completely composed of ordinary people. So, Jermaine and Hill were also ordinary people. Jermaine owned an escape room game shop. Hill was an ordinary university student. However, they would still try their best to fight against the professional hunters. This was because if they could escape from the hunters' pursuit in 28 days, they would also be rewarded with $250,000. They were not alone. Other than that, there were 8 other groups of fugitives. Everyone had started their escape journey. Of course, all of this seemed to have nothing to do with Yang-yi, who was far away on a small farm in Texas. Chapter 789. There were more than 20 ponies in Grandpa's stables and more than 10 adult horses. She looked around and was dazzled by the choices. There were too many horses. Even though she only needed to pick ponies, it was still difficult to choose. Most of them were ponies with a common red hair. The difference in their hair color was relatively small. The main difference was the color of their faces and legs. Some of them had a white mark from their forehead to their nose. Some of them had a white gradient under their mouth and near their eyes. There were also some whose hooves were white. Apart from these horses, there were also dark ponies. They had black manes and tails, and their bodies were more brown. "Grandpa, do these ponies often bask in the sun?" She asked as she pointed at the dark ponies. "Bask in the sun? They are often chased out by old Ford to move around and eat fresh grass." Emohenian didn't understand. He explained the details of raising ponies to She. She nodded as if she suddenly understood. She said innocently, "Then Grandpa, you have to put some sunscreen on them too. They're all tanned." Yang Yi, who was following behind the old man and Cece, finally understood. He couldn't help but laugh. She was such a fool. She actually thought that the dark ponies were tanned by the red ponies in front. Emohenian also understood. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he rubbed Shishi's little head and said, "According to what you said, this pony is exposed to the sun every day?" Emohenian and she pointed at the only dark pony at the back. This dark pony was covered in light black hair. Although it wasn't pure enough and the color wasn't shiny enough, in Yang Yi's eyes, this dark pony was still very handsome. It was low-key, reserved, and domineering. However, Emohenian still underestimated Shishi's ability to make connections. The young lady shook her head seriously. She pointed at the dark pony and said, "That's not it. It's a dark pony. He was the one who was tanned. Greg's dark too, but he's not tanned. He told me he's black. How could his daughter have such deep knowledge?" Yang Yi was dumbfounded. In the end, Shishi still chose the white pony that she had fed the carrot to. Although it was a white horse, it was not completely white. There were still many black spots on its body. After all, purebred and pure-colored horses were too expensive. Emohenian would not waste money on horse fur. However, this white pony was exceptionally docile. It seemed to like She, who fed it the carrot. When she leaned over again, the little fellow moved its head closer again. It rubbed against She while breathing heavily, as if it wanted to remember She's scent. Horses are animals that smell and hear, but their eyesight is very bad. She also liked its intimacy. She let go of the fear in her heart and giggled. She hugged the pony's head and patted it carefully. Yang Yi still felt a little regretful that his daughter did not choose the dark pony that he liked very much. Instead, she chose this ordinary-looking white pony. This morning, she fed the white pony. She pulled the reins and led it for a stroll on the grassland with some shade beside the small forest. Although old Ford had arranged for them to put a saddle on the white pony and let Shishi try to ride it for a few minutes, the white pony was not familiar with Shishi yet. Old Ford still wanted to be cautious and let Shishi build a deep friendship with the white pony first before slowly teaching Shishi how to ride. On the way back to his grandfather's villa, Emohenian did not follow them. He rode the pony to watch the cowboys work. Yang Yi held his daughter's hand alone and walked slowly with her. He asked, "What name did you give it?" Shishi had a lot of fun. This was a very new experience. The little girl was reluctant to leave her white pony and talked about it all the way. After hearing her father's question, Shishi thought for a while and said crisply, "I want to call it Little White because it's white. It's also very small. Papa, Little White is only 1 year old. It's about the same age as Little Brother. It's still a little different from Little Brother. The age of a horse is 6 years old for us humans." Yang Yi smiled and raised his eyebrows at Shishi. He said, "So Little White is actually about the same age as you?" Ah! She was a little surprised, but she soon became happy again. "That's very good. Hee, Papa, then I can play with Xiao Bai. No wonder it likes me so much. Ha. Because you're the same age." The incident of Yang Yi hitting a reporter caused a big disturbance in China. Because the impression that Yang Yi gave people before was still very perfect, coupled with the fact that he was brimming with talent, he also gave people the illusion of being cultured and refined. Because of this, people selectively forgot that Yang Yi was actually a tall and burly man. However, after this incident was exposed, Yang Yi in the photo had a solemn look on his face as he pushed the reporters away. The victim in the photo had a pained look on his face, which made Yang Yi's fierce side vividly displayed. It had to be said that this scared many young fans. Perhaps someone used the internet water army to add fuel to the fire, and detailed Yang Yi's bad deeds. Phoebe Studios' micro-broadcast of clarification made the fans who believed in Yang Yi feel relieved. However, it could not change the passers-by's condemnation of Yang Yi. They did not want to watch it. Mo Xiaowan was remotely commanding in the United States. She asked the company's legal department to directly sue the newspaper that originally spread the rumor in court, and asked them to publish a clarification and an apology. However, this lawsuit would take time. Fortunately, the reporters who surrounded Yang Yi were not impenetrable. Someone saw an opportunity and found the famous Zhuo Zai Lu Yu in the paparazzi world. This is the video I got. A reporter took it. Although it is a bit blurry, I can recognize that Mr. Yang did not hit anyone. He just protected his family and pushed the reporters away. Lu Yu contacted Mo Xiaowan. How are you going to deal with this matter? Mo Xiaowan did not know that Lu Yu was the teacher, but she knew that Lu Yu and Yang Yi had a hidden interest relationship. She thought about it and said, "You are an expert. How do you think we should deal with it? One is that you release the video yourself, and the other is that I expose it. However, I think the latter is better. This is not because I want to take advantage of Mr. Yang's popularity, but because my influence is bigger than your studio's micro-broadcast." Lu Yu said, "And I can buy Internet Water Army to help you hype up this matter." While clarifying, it can also reverse the direction of public opinion. It is not convenient for you to buy Internet Water Army. Okay, I'll leave this matter to you. Mo Xiaowan nodded and said, "By the way, someone is buying Internet Water Army to discredit Yang Yi and Murphy. If you have a way, try to help us check it out and see who has been making things difficult for us." Lu Yu smiled and said, "It is not easy to check this matter. The people who buy Internet Water Army will hide very well, but I will help to keep an eye on them. There will be a day when they will reveal themselves." Mo Xiaowan nodded and smiled. "Mr. Lu, I'll have to trouble you with this matter. How much do you need? I'll ask the finance department to transfer it to your account. Don't talk about money. Help Mr. Yang expose it, and I can also make money. Moreover, Mr. Yang is my benefactor. Talking about money is looking down on me, Lu Yu." Lu Yu waved his hand straightforwardly. Chapter 790. Yang Yi's micro-broadcasting had not been updated for a while. Some media speculated that Yang Yi was trying to avoid the limelight and handle this matter in a low-key manner. That was why he did not personally speak out about this matter. How could they know that Yang Yi was just busy going abroad and did not have time to update his micro-broadcasting? A few days after Mo Xiaowan and Lu Yu communicated under Lu Yu's manipulation, the public opinion changed dramatically. There was a video that proved that Yang Yi did not hit anyone. It also proved that he pushed the reporters away just to protect his family. This made many onlookers switch sides and support Yang Yi's approach. To protect his wife and child, there's nothing wrong with beating up these unscrupulous reporters, let alone pushing them away. I'm very unhappy watching this. In this video, our little angel she is squeezing beside her father's leg. These people kept crowding over and almost stepped on she's foot. If it were me, I would beat them up too. Am I the only one who thinks that Yang Yi is very handsome? This is the first time I've seen him so strong. He pushed away 5 people alone, and the other party did not even have the ability to fight back. A person who can protect his wife and child is really too handsome. After the video was exposed, there were many passers-by who became fans. However, the public opinion on the internet quietly changed. People's attention on Yang Yi gradually decreased. The topic of discussion gradually turned to how to regulate the behavior of entertainment reporters. Although this discussion was meaningless, there were still many celebrities who quietly expressed their opinions. A few days later, when everyone thought that Yang Yi's storm had passed, in the middle of the night in China, Yang Yi quietly updated his micro-broadcasting again. Hee, let me record this. Our old Yang family also has a valiant and formidable female knight today. Between the words, Yang Yi did not mention the previous storm of public opinion at all. He even showed a proud attitude of showing off his woman. Micro-broadcasting had several photos that were accumulated over the past few days. There was a photo of Shi when she first arrived in the United States and walked around with her white pony. There was a photo of Shi riding on the pony under the care of her grandfather and Grandpa Ford. There was also a photo of Yang Yi carrying Shi on a tall pony. Of course, the best photo was taken by Yang Yi just now. After so many days of practice, Shi had mastered the basic riding skills and had a tacit understanding with her white pony. In the photo, Shi was wearing blue jeans and a pink t-shirt. Although she was not wearing a cowboy hat, she was still wearing the classic red cowboy scarf and had a long ponytail. She looked like a cool cowboy. In the photo taken by Yang Yi, Shi was holding the reins and riding the white pony towards her father on the grassland. After Shi's movie, The Fugitive, was released, although Yang Yi rarely posted photos of Shi's front, if he did, he would not Photoshop Shi's face. Therefore, this time, the handsome and charming cowboy girl in the photo revealed her delicate and beautiful little face. Shi looked at her father and smiled brightly. This smile was like a touch of gentleness embellished on her valiant appearance. When these photos were posted by Yang Yi, the fans were instantly excited and started to comment. This is the benefit of the cultivation community. Instead of sleeping in the middle of the night, you can actually see my little angel, Shi. Father-in-law, where did you kidnap my wife? She hasn't updated micro-broadcasting for so many days. Our Shi is amazing. She even knows how to ride a horse. And looking at the last photo, she's riding quite well. Is she going to participate in the Olympic Games? My little knight? Great, Shi is so beautiful no matter how she dresses up. She's so cool. I'm a girl, but I'm fascinated by Shi. What should I do? Why are there foreigners in tour? They're dressed like cowboys. Did Shi go abroad to play after graduating from kindergarten? Many fans were very curious about where Shi learned to ride a horse. It had to be said that the power of the people was endless. The next day, before the media reacted, some fans dug up some news from the media when Yang Yi and Murphy got married. He took a screenshot and posted it in the comments. In addition to the foreigner in tour, the cool old cowboy in the photo with Shi is Shi's grandfather. He appeared at Yang Yi's wedding before. Some media outlets have revealed Mo Fei's background. Her mother was a small-time celebrity in Hong Kong. Her father was an architectural designer in California at that time, but later, according to Hong Kong media reports, it was said that he changed his career and bought a farm in Texas to be a farmer. With all this information, plus the fact that Yang Yi posted micro-broadcasting in the middle of the night, it's not difficult to speculate that Yang Yi and the others should be on vacation at his father-in-law's farm. It's not surprising that Shi learned to ride a horse there. Besides, I have to say that old Master Mo is really cool. It's the first time I've seen an Asian dressed like a cowboy. Under this comment, a group of fans expressed that they wanted to kneel down to this master of deduction. He was able to dig up so much information. The media reports in China in recent years could indeed be found on the internet. However, the news that Zhou Mengyu's husband became a farmer was from more than 10 years ago. Moreover, it was from an inconspicuous tabloid. This person was indeed very resourceful to be able to find that information. In the domestic entertainment industry, people placed too much importance on the status of stars and overestimated their role as idols. In the words of many seniors, they were becoming more and more impetuous. Yang Yi's simple micro-broadcasting of Shi's daily life could attract a lot of media attention and reports. However, at this time, another person who was also impetuous became more grounded. At the Beijing Film and Television Base, Yang Huan and Ding Xiang were talking to an assistant director who had been invited by the group to talk about her playing a minor role. Yang Huan, can I call you Sister Huan? You're really making things difficult for me. The assistant director said with a wry smile, You're a big star, and you're playing a minor role. If others know, won't they scold me for being blind? It's not a minor role. Isn't it a special guest? Yang Huan said with a smile, Don't call me Sister Huan. I'm younger than you. But you're a big star. So what if I'm a big star? I'm not a big star. In the industry, I'm still a newbie. You're a senior, and I still need your guidance. Yang Huan said with a smile. Filming The Ultimate Challenge was indeed a good training. With a group of old foxes, as well as the cunning Zhu Jie and Guazi, Yang Huan's EQ had improved a lot. No, I really can't. I'll be scolded to death. The media will definitely report that we're using a great talent for nothing. Our director will also scold me. The assistant director said with a wry smile, How about I ask the management to give you a big role? However, it's not easy to change the roles now. No need to ask others to help me. I'll just shoot this minor role in one day. After that, I'll have to go to other places. It's such a good training. Yang Huan said with a smile, I'm in my first year in the acting department. I'll be in my second year soon. There's still a lot to learn. For a big role, I'll have to practice my acting skills first. Brother Wu, you can tell the director now, so that he'll know what to do. Ding Xiang saw that the assistant director was in a difficult position, so she suggested, If the media reports it, we'll clarify it for you and the crew. This is our own idea. Moreover, if the media reports that Yang Huan is playing a minor role, won't you attract a lot of attention? Sometimes, it's good to be scolded. People can't wait for the media to hype it up. Ding Xiang was getting more and more familiar with the rules of the entertainment industry. Her words were watertight, and the assistant director was tempted. He gritted his teeth and said, All right. Do you really want this role? Let me tell you, Sister Huan, this role is a little sad. Sad is good. Yang Huan needs some special roles to practice her acting skills. Ding Xiang nodded. Chapter 791. Early in the morning, the sun had just driven away the green mist in the fields and illuminated the land. Next to the Mo family's barn, a girl with long hair wearing a headband ran past while giggling. Behind her was a Great Dane with long legs. The black cowboy, Greg, was arranging the hay drying in the open space beside the valley. When he saw she running past, he grinned and called out, Hey, good morning, my princess. Are you going to play with your pony so early in the morning? Mo Henian was the proudest that she had learned to ride a horse. These cowboys, who were like family, finally recognized she. They no longer treated her as an ignorant little girl, but as their companion. Of course, they teasingly called she a princess, my princess. This was also a reflection of their closer relationship. Greg, good morning. I'm going to say goodbye to Little White. She stopped and politely greeted Greg. She had only been in America for less than a week, but the girl's spoken English and listening skills had improved by leaps and bounds. She could even communicate with the fast-talking black cowboys without any difficulty. Goodbye? Are you going back to China? Aren't you going to play here for 2 months? Greg was shocked and asked reluctantly. Greg, you misunderstood. I'm just saying goodbye to Little White today because I can't play with it today. Today is a girl's day. I'll come to see Little White tomorrow. She explained for a while. What was a girl's day? Greg was a little confused, but he didn't want to ask too much. He was obviously not interested in this topic, so he shrugged and said, Okay. After bidding farewell to Greg, Cece took the Great Dane and ran toward the stable with her long, slender legs. Her appearance caused some commotion in the stable. The stable was much emptier because most of the adult horses had been ridden out by the cowboys to herd cattle. The rest were basically ponies that couldn't work. They recognized the girl who came every day recently and gathered around. Unfortunately, Shishi's heart already belonged to someone else. The little girl ran straight to her white pony. Xiao Bai, I'm here to see you. The white pony had also been waiting for a long time. It stuck its head out from the middle of the fence and lowered its head meekly. It rubbed its long forehead and cheeks against its little master as if it was acting coquettishly. It made Shi giggle. Xiao Bai, you can't go out to play today. Shi hugged the white pony's head and smiled with her big eyes. I'm going out to play with Grandma and Mom today. You have to be good at home. She even imitated her father's usual tone of exhortation. All right. This carrot is for you. She played with the white pony for a while, then turned around and took out a carrot from the plastic bucket on the side and handed it to the pony. The white pony especially liked to eat carrots. Of course, all horses liked this sweet food. After it held the carrot in its mouth, its upper lip turned up, and its nose even puffed. Obviously, it was in a very good mood. As if they smelled the food, the other ponies snorted and paced around anxiously. When Cece saw this scene, the kind little girl's heart softened. She struggled to lift the plastic bucket and fed the carrots to the other ponies while muttering in a low voice, "Well, these are for you guys too. Be good and listen to me." She, who went to feed the ponies early in the morning, returned home just in time to wait for her grandfather, who had finished his work, to come back. Everyone had breakfast together. I just met Bariah. He said that we will form a team and go hunting in the forest in the west in a few days. Henian grabbed a big piece of cake and said excitedly, "In the past 2 years, the number of wolves in our state has increased rapidly, which has a great impact on the rare species in the forest. The Department of Natural Resources has issued a notice that we are allowed to hunt coyotes freely. If there are more of them, when there is nothing to eat in winter, I'm afraid they will come to the farm to harm us." As Henian said, he turned his head to look at Yang Yi and raised his eyebrows. "Yang Yi, when the time comes, do you want to come with us to broaden your horizons? You won't be afraid, right?" Oh, the old man's tone had a hint of provocation, as if he was worried that Yang Yi would shrink back. "Papa, don't go, okay? You are old. Can't you just let Uncle Ford and the others go?" Murphy, who was on the side, advised somewhat unhappily. "Hunting is not dangerous. We have horses, dogs, and guns. More than a dozen people. How can we be afraid of a few wolves?" Henian waved his hand. "It's okay, I'll go." Yang Yi smiled. He patted Murphy's hand and comforted her, "With me here, Dad won't be in danger." Murphy knew that Yang Yi's skills were extraordinary. She grabbed Yang Yi's hand and said somewhat worriedly, "But this is a gun, I'm afraid that there will be a misfire. You guys still have to be careful, even more careful. It's okay if you can't catch the wolves. Safety first." "Hey, what are you talking about?" Henian was very unhappy with Yang Yi's words. He swallowed the biscuit in his mouth and said angrily, "I still need you to protect me? You haven't been in the army for so many years. I'm afraid that you don't even know how to hold a gun. I'm afraid that us old men still have to protect you. Speaking so arrogantly." Yang Yi smiled and did not talk back to his father-in-law. "Don't try to be brave. How old are you already? You always rush to be the first to do anything." Zhou Mingyu also said a few words. As for Yang Yi's side, let Ford help take care of him. "Mom, thank you for your concern," Yang Yi said with a smile. Zhou Mingyu and Yang Yi's parents were not like Dong Yue's parents. Dong Yue was the one who kept Yang Chonggui's word at home, but Zhou Mingyu could not be tough. Sometimes, no one could persuade Henian's stubbornness. Sitting at the table, she kept blinking her big eyes. She was eating breakfast while listening to their conversation. Finally, she found a chance to interject. "Papa, can I go play with you guys? I can ride Xiao Bai and go together." The little girl asked expectantly. "No." This time, the 4 adults shouted in unison. Henian said even more seriously, "How old are you? You want to run around with adults and stay at home." Of course, the old man felt that his tone was a little harsh. He pretended to be relaxed and said, "Of course, You can still play with your grandfather today. We'll take Xiao Bai to see Nyonyo, okay? No. Zhou Mingyu smiled and said, Today is girls' day. We'll take Shi and Mommy with us. Again. Where are you going? Mo Henian originally did not care about these women's affairs, but he was a little unhappy that his precious granddaughter was taken away. We're going to Nyonyo City to buy clothes, bags, shoes, and so on. Zhou Mingyu took Shishi's hand and said with a smile. You don't want to know. Shi also giggled. Following her fashionable grandmother, she would have beautiful clothes to wear. After all, she was a girl. Of course, she would like it. Their wives and children all set off to play. Yang Yi and his father-in-law looked at each other in a daze. For a moment, they did not know how to get along with each other. Cough. Papa, their girls' day. It's also a men's day. Yang Yi smiled awkwardly and said, So, what's the plan for today? Mo Henian touched the beard on his chin. Thinking of the conversation just now, he snorted and said, We'll go hunting in a few days. I'll take you to play with guns and familiarize yourself with them. Don't embarrass me then. Chapter 792. Should he show some real skills to his father-in-law? That way, he wouldn't be underestimating him. Sitting in Mo Henian's jeep, Yang Yi pondered in his heart. What kind of guns did you play with in the army? Rifles? Pistols? Or a machine gun? Mo Henian asked casually. They were heading to the shooting range of the biggest gun club in Big Grassland Town. There were more types of guns than gun shops and supermarkets, and they could experience shooting different types of guns. I've played with all of them, Yang Yi answered simply. When he was in Battle Wolf, his predecessor had even trained with heavy machine guns on tanks and even artillery shells. Mo Henian's question was too childish. Of course, Yang Yi thought it through. He didn't show off in front of his father-in-law. If he showed his qualifications, Mo Henian would know that he wasn't an ordinary retired soldier, and he wasn't a pushover. However, there didn't seem to be any benefits in slapping his father-in-law's face. When they arrived at the shooting range, Yang Yi realized that this shooting range was a little interesting. One part of the shooting range was indoors, and they had to wear headphones to shoot. Another part of the shooting range was built in the wide and open countryside. Not only could they shoot target paper, but they could also shoot various objects, bottles, apples, and so on. Mo Henian was obviously a regular at this gun club. When he came in, the manager greeted him warmly. At the door, there were a few fashionable old men in shorts and polo shirts shouting, Mo, your cows. These fashionable old men looked like they had just come back from playing golf. They chatted with Mo Henian cheerfully. Originally, they had played enough and were ready to go back. Now that they saw Mo Henian, they put their arms around each other's shoulders and excitedly prepared to go back for another 500 rounds. Originally, Yang Yi thought that these old men were like Beria and Mo Henian, farmers nearby. However, when Mo Henian introduced them to him, Yang Yi found out that they lived in town and did different businesses. Some ran supermarkets, some ran bars, and some sold cattle and sheep. However, they mainly did it in the nearby Arlington City. Pick a gun and see what you want to play with. Mo Henian's face was cold but his heart was warm. He didn't neglect his son-in-law just because he saw his friend. He handed over the gun list and showed it to Yang Yi. Pick one to practice first. You can change later if you want to try something else. The names of the guns in this world were very different from those in Yang Yi's previous world. Yang Yi took a few glances and picked an automatic rifle that looked like an M16. As Yang Yi was a newcomer, he couldn't use the gun on his own. An instructor came over to teach him how to use the rifle, as well as some rules to follow in the outdoor and indoor shooting ranges. The old men didn't play by themselves. They were chatting on the side and watching Yang Yi, the rookie, being trained with relish. Mo, I thought your daughter would marry an American. I didn't expect her to marry a Chinese. Humph, this brat is so lucky. I think he's all right. As far as I know, there aren't many in China who are as tall as him. Alright, Mo, I heard your daughter is a celebrity in China? As the old men chatted, Yang Yi patiently listened to the instructor's instructions. He didn't tell the instructor that he actually understood everything. After all, this was a whole new world. It was more meaningful to watch someone else's demonstration to make sure he didn't misunderstand or make any mistakes than to rush to show off. You can try it with me. The pot-bellied middle-aged instructor nodded at Yang Yi. Yang Yi finally picked up the black rifle. The slightly worn texture on the gun gave Yang Yi a wonderful touch. The cold feeling also made Yang Yi a little absent-minded. It was as if his spirit had traveled through two different worlds. Pick up a gun. What do you need to do? The instructor saw that Yang Yi was in a daze and thought that he didn't know how to use the gun, so he reminded him. Yang Yi came back to his senses. He smiled slightly and his hands began to move. Yang Yi pulled the handle of the gun with familiarity and checked it. A series of complicated operations were completed smoothly. Then, he inserted the magazine. Kocha, a soft sound was heard, as if it was a starting gun. Suddenly, Yang Yi felt that the sounds of the whole world became clear. He could acutely perceive the movements around him, the positions of the old men who were talking, walking, smoking, and the positions of the gunmen in the distance. He was completely in combat mode. It was as if he could immediately choose the right target to shoot if a criminal appeared. The instructor originally thought that Yang Yi would need to train for a while before he could understand how to use the gun. However, now that he saw Yang Yi's skillful operation, he swallowed back the words he wanted to say. You know guns, the instructor said, somewhat speechless. Fire a few shots for me to see? I don't think you need any more training. Where should I shoot? Yang Yi asked. 100-meter target, A8. The instructor pointed to a target in the distance. Yang Yi followed the instructor's instructions and walked to the A8 position. He gently pushed up the safety device, which was the fast and slow trigger, and selected the single-shot mode. Then, he skillfully leaned the butt of the gun against his shoulder, tilted his head, aimed, and fired. Bang! The gunshot interrupted the old men's conversation. They all looked over. They've started shooting so soon? How's the result? Mo Henian was also curious. He followed his friends and walked toward his son-in-law and the instructor. Now, the target paper in the shooting range was changed electronically. Moreover, there were cameras that could check the bullet traces. The instructor quickly brought up the A8 target paper on the display beside him. Yang Yi's bullet hit the bottom left of the target paper. It was still some distance away from the bullseye. However, the bullet didn't miss the target. This made the old men laugh and clap. Not bad. You're already so good at your first shot. Keep up the good work. Mo Henian encouraged. In fact, he was very satisfied with his son-in-law's performance. To be able to hit the target paper, he could boast to his friends about Yang Yi's talent. Yang Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In fact, he wasn't completely familiar with the gun. The first shot was just a test. He wanted to see the gun's recoil, the bullet's shooting speed, and the degree of drop. Now, he had the basic concept in his heart. He silently counted some corrected data and fired another shot at the target paper in the distance. The bullet hit the top right of the bullseye. It was still a little off, but this time, the distance to the bullseye was much shorter. After 2 tests, Yang Yi had already figured out the gun's performance. However, no one watched his performance. The instructor saw that he was already very familiar with the gun. He gave a box of bullets to Yang Yi and went to check on the other people in the shooting range. Meanwhile, Mo Henian and his friends were chatting. They felt that just watching wasn't enough. Under someone's suggestion, they took a double-barreled shotgun and went to shoot a flying saucer. Yang Yi changed to a 200-meter target. However, he still shot while standing and easily hit a few bullseye. Unfortunately, no one saw his good results. Yang Yi didn't mind. He also came to have fun. To Yang Yi, guns were just a simple skill. In comparison, he preferred cold weapons for assassination in his previous life. However, When Yang Yi was practicing, something happened on his father-in-law's side. "Mo, how about we make a bet?" 3 old farm owners walked over. The one in the lead had a cigar in his mouth. He laughed and said, "You have to give me a chance. I've liked your Remington for a long time." Chapter 793. The 3 newly arrived old men were also the farm owners of this grassland town. The one with a cigar in his mouth was called Doug, and he owned the largest farm in the town. The one on his left was called Craven, and his farm mainly grew fruits. Of course, it was also the area closest to the forest. The one on his right was called Stuart, and other than owning a farm, he also had other cattle and sheep businesses. Stuart and a good friend of Mo Henian's could be considered competitors, so they were egging each other on. Although they were talking and laughing, it was still a little tense. Yang Yi handed the rifle in his hand to the shooting range manager and went over to watch the show. When Yang Yi came over, the hot-tempered and easily provoked Mo Henian had already discussed with the other party. The old man was twisting his arms and preparing himself. "Gentlemen, what's the situation?" Yang Yi whispered to the others. Nelson, who owned the bar, smiled and said, "Mo accepted their bet. Do you see those target throwing machines? Later, 2 targets will be thrown out each time. Each round will be thrown 5 times, and it will be 3 rounds. Whoever wins the most will be the winner. Double-directional flying saucers, that's a big bet. I don't think anyone can hit 2 targets at once, right?" An old man beside him shook his head. "Stuart hit it before. It happened last week. I don't know if it's true or not. Anyway, I've never seen him hit it before. If it's true, then this guy is really lucky." Another old man said, "It's okay, your father-in-law won't lose out in terms of the bet." Nelson patted Yang Yi's shoulder and said excitedly, "Your father-in-law bet an antique gun, but Doug bet his favorite sports car. In terms of price, Doug bet twice as much. Doug's car is beautiful." An old man beside him was drooling. "That color, that streamlined body, it's like a burning cloud. You can't trap a wolf without risking your child. If Mo can win, we can borrow it to drive in the future. Doug is a stingy guy, but Mo is much more generous." Yang Yi interrupted their daydreaming and asked anxiously, "Hey, Nelson, how are we going to compete in this competition? Doug's side seems to have all 3 of them going up. Is my father-in-law going to do it himself?" "There are 3 rounds and they'll take turns. Actually, their marksmanship is about the same. It's just for fun," Nielsen explained. "Mo can send someone else, but he wants to compete by himself." While they were talking, Mo Henian had already checked his hunting rifle. He had a bag of bullets on his waist and even took off his sunglasses. He walked valiantly to the edge of the outdoor field and looked provocatively at Doug, who was walking up with a cigar in his mouth. "Doug, it's not too late for you to regret it now." "Hee, the one who will regret it is you." Doug Gu held the cigar between his fingers. A bodyguard beside him brought over a shelf and placed it on top. Then, he took out his own double-barreled shotgun and loaded it with 2 shotgun shells. The 2 childish old men spat at each other for a while until the coach at the side of the field shouted for them to get ready. Only then did they seriously hold the shotguns in their hands. The first shot was fired by Doug Gu. 2 flying saucers flew out of the target trench. Their distance, height, and direction were all different. Doug Gu fired 2 consecutive shots. The first shot hit one of the flying saucers, causing a cloud of pink powder to explode in the air. The second shot missed. Yang Yi watched from behind. He had a rough idea of what was going on. With Doug Ge's slow reaction speed, it was impossible for him to hit the second flying saucer. After he fired the first shot, the second shot was hurried and did not hit the second flying saucer. Flying saucer shooting used shotgun shells. The flying saucer target could fly a distance of about 70 meters, but the bullet's optimal hit distance was less than half. Therefore, one's reaction speed had to be fast. One had to shoot the flying saucer within a few tenths of a second to not let the flying saucer get too far away. Yang Yi had never played this game in his previous life. However, he had watched competitions on TV and knew how to play this game. However, even though Doug Ge's skill level seemed amateur to Yang Yi, Nielsen said worriedly, "Doug Ge, your hands are pretty good today. You hit it on the first shot." Yang Yi was stunned and looked at them. It seems like they were playing just now. They must have practiced for a while. An old man beside him said, "These guys must know that Mo hasn't practiced." As he spoke, Mo Henian fired his first shot. Bang bang. Only the sound of gunshots was heard. There was no movement. "Mo, looks like you can't do it. Are you going to lose your Remington to me?" Bull **T. That was just a mistake. I'll show you how I hit a double yoke later. The two of them started to trash talk again. Mo Henian was not at a disadvantage at all. Of course, Yang Yi also knew that it was impossible for his father-in-law to hit two targets at the same time with his reaction speed unless he was blindly guessing. Both of them still had 4 shots to shoot. Doug Ge missed the next shot. He was probably a little excited. Mo Henian still could not hit the target. On the third shot, Mo Henian finally hit a shot. However, Doug Ge also hit it. Not good. Doug Ge has a good feel today, an old man muttered. Yang Yi was anxious as he watched from the side. He hoped that his father-in-law could put in more effort. Winning or losing was not important. He could not lose his dignity. However, Mo Henian missed the 4th shot. Doug Ge still hit a flying saucer steadily. Hee, Mo. You've already lost. Doug Ge smiled proudly. Who said I've lost? Mo Henian said angrily. There's still one more round. If I can hit 2 flying saucers, I'll be able to catch up. It'll be a tie. That's impossible. Let's wait and see. It was indeed impossible. Mo Henian could not hit 2 multi-directional flying saucers. Although Doug Ge didn't hit the flying saucer in this round, Mo Henian still didn't hit a single shot. He was too impatient and missed his first shot. He didn't follow up with his second shot. He lost this round. Don't be anxious. Haha, you still have 2 more chances to turn the tables. Old Doug Ge was also a childish ghost. He smugly patted Mo Henian's shoulder. Seeing Mo Henian's displeased expression, he felt very refreshed in his heart. It seemed that the shotgun that he had been eyeing for a long time could be lured over. Mo Henian was indeed unhappy. Losing 3-1 was a little too much. However, the old man did not break down. When he came back, he bragged to Nielsen and the other old men, "It's okay. It's okay. I didn't feel good in that round. I'll definitely win the next round." However, Yang Yi could see that his father-in-law was anxious. While he waited for the manager to change the target, he kept clenching his fist or wiping the shotgun in his hand. "Dad, why don't you let me go? You might feel a little cold today, but I feel very hot." Yang Yi went over and whispered to Mo Henian in Chinese with a smile, "I'll fight the next 2 rounds for you. I guarantee you'll win." You've played with this thing before?" Mo Henian looked at Yang Yi suspiciously. If Yang Yi had performed well in the previous round, he could still understand that Yang Yi had been in the army before and had some foundation. However, he did not think that Yang Yi had practiced flying saucer shooting when he was in the army. Which army was still equipped with shotguns? It seemed that, other than some troops in the United States, there was no other country that used a shotgun that had a short range and could easily injure their own people. Yang Yi lied through his teeth. "There is. I have a friend in China who runs this shooting range in Magic City. I've played with him before. I'm not bragging to you, but I'm really talented in this." Mo Henian was skeptical. However, his son-in-law volunteered to share the burden with him. Mo Henian felt warm in his heart. In addition, he did not feel good today and was not confident. Therefore, he did not insist and nodded lightly. "Doug Ge, my son-in-law will compete in the next round for me," Mo Henian said to Doug Ge, and the rest with his arm around Yang Yi's shoulder and his head held high. "Your son-in-law?" Doug Guo had not officially met this Asian young man beside Mo Henian. However, he did not think that Yang Yi could be that good. He laughed proudly. Haha, sure. Any one of you can go. Chapter 794. In America, many people look down on yellow-skinned people and look down on the weak Chinese people. Mo Henian, on the other hand, was respected by these people because of his fiery temper and playful cowboy personality. Although Doug was trash-talking to Mo Henian and talking about Mo Henian's antique gun, he did not look down on Mo Henian. At least when he spoke to him, he maintained the attitude of being on equal footing. If it was not for the fact that he could not handle it, Doug might even call Mo Henian his brother. This was rare, because Doug only recognized Mo Henian as a yellow-skinned person. When he saw Yang Yi, he did not even look at this young yellow-skinned person. Before he analyzed the situation rationally, he already did not take Yang Yi seriously. When Yang Yi and Craven were preparing for the second round of the competition, Doug was still teasing Mo Henian, saying that he was too cowardly to find a young boy to replace him. Behind them, Nelson and the few old men were also discussing when they saw Yang Yi replacing Mo Henian. He asked his son-in-law to fight. Could it be that he has some hidden trump card? Yang is not bad. I like this young man. I hope he can win back my flaming cloud. What do you mean by your flaming cloud? We don't know if he can win or not. I've never seen him fight a flying saucer before. He was just asking about the rules. Why did Mo ask him to fight Craven? Craven is not that strong. For this kind of double-directional flying saucer, he can only hit 2 out of 5. If Mo went himself, he might have a higher chance of winning. An old man said doubtfully. Nelson's gaze fell on Mo Henian, who was frowning at Yang Yi. He guessed, Mo probably wants to take care of his son-in-law. It's the first time a young man fights a flying saucer. Giving him a weak opponent will save him from losing too badly. Nelson did not know that he had guessed part of Mo Henian's thoughts correctly. Yang Yi did not know either. Although his father-in-law was usually fierce, he was still thinking about him in his heart. If Mo Henian was stubborn, he definitely wouldn't be willing to let Yang Yi have Craven, an opponent that he had a higher chance of winning. However, winning or losing the competition was not important. No matter how valuable an antique gun was, it was only about $100,000. Mo Henian did not want to dampen Yang Yi's enthusiasm. He also wanted to believe in Yang Yi. Get ready! The referee shouted from the sidelines. Unlike Mo Henian and Dao Guo, Yang Yi, who was the first to shoot, did not hold the gun in a standard horizontal position. The butt of the gun was close to his armpit so that he could fire against his shoulder at any time. Yang Yi did not have this habit. He held the gun in a relaxed manner, and the muzzle was tilted downward. He stood straight and looked in the direction of the target throwing machine in the middle of the field. 2 flying saucers were quietly thrown out. At this moment, Yang Yi's eyes became sharp. In an instant, he was ready to shoot. He placed the butt of the gun against his shoulder and pulled the trigger. Bang bang. First shot, muzzle flick, second shot. His posture was very handsome. However, there was no pink powder in the air. It was a little awkward. He missed both shots. Young man, I'll teach you how to use a gun. Craven, who replaced him, seemed to think that Yang Yi was a rookie. He proudly fired 2 shots and actually hit one of them. This was indeed a pleasant surprise for the fat white Craven, whose marksmanship wasn't too accurate. Sigh. Craven's luck is too good. The old men said regretfully. Yang Yi is in a bit of trouble. Nelson looked at Yang Yi worriedly. It's your turn. Craven chuckled as he walked past Yang Yi. Yang Yi did not talk trash. He stood calmly at the side. Just now, he almost hit the target. It was just that he missed by a little. Especially the first shot. He could feel that the range of the bullet was very close to hitting the flying saucer. This shotgun was a shotgun after all. The recoil was very strong. It was Yang Yi's first time coming into contact with a shotgun in this world. He had not gotten used to it yet. The recoil from the first shot also affected the speed of his second shot. The muzzle had already turned, but the firing was a little slower. Luckily, the 2 shots just now allowed Yang Yi to understand the situation of the gun and know how to adjust it. Of course, he could find an excuse for not hitting the target. However, Yang Yi was still a little unhappy. He was an assassin in his previous life. In this life, he was still a special forces soldier. It was too embarrassing for him to fall behind a normal person. This time, Yang Yi would not allow himself to miss again. Yang Yi was still standing with a gun in his hand. His expression was a little serious. However, at this time, a familiar shout came from behind him. "Come on, don't be nervous. You can do it." Yang Yi was stunned. He turned around and looked at Mohenian, who was smiling and clenching his fist. His father-in-law was actually cheering him on. Yang Yi nodded lightly. When he turned his head back, he became even more spirited, and his eyes became especially stern. This time, Yang Yi was really serious. Fire! The 2 flying saucers flew out in different directions and at different angles. Yang Yi's gaze was firmly fixed on them. He also raised his gun in an instant. Bang bang! 2 balls of pink powder exploded in the air. Yang Yi, on the other hand, only glanced at it lightly. He casually opened the chamber and threw away the 2 cartridges. Then, he turned around and walked back to Mohenian's side. This series of movements was extremely natural and unrestrained. "Oh!" Only then did the old men react and exclaim in surprise. Nelson also exclaimed with a face full of surprise, "Perfect! It was a perfect hit!" On the other side, Doug and the others were dumbfounded. They were dumbstruck and could not believe their eyes. The commotion here also attracted the attention of some customers and even a few coaches. They came over and asked curiously, "This young man, he hit the double flying saucer perfectly just now." An old man excitedly introduced to the onlookers. "Really? That's amazing. It was not easy to hit 2 flying saucers at once. In the shooting range, one might only see it once every few days. Even these few old men had never been so lucky before." Therefore, everyone was discussing and waiting expectantly for Yang Yi's next shot. As for Craven, this guy was under a lot of pressure. His 2 shots had missed, and he had been ignored by everyone. On Yang Yi's side, he did not see the old master's surprised expression. Perhaps Mohenian was still a little reserved, but the old master nodded somewhat arrogantly and pretended not to care as he commented, "Not bad, keep up the good work." "Then keep up the good work." The 3rd time, Yang Yi hit the 2 flying saucers steadily. 2 balls of pink powder exploded in the air like 2 blooming flowers. The onlookers were amazed. "Who is this young man? He's so strong. 2 perfect hits in a row. This is not luck. Let's see if he can hit again next time." After the shot, the onlookers began to discuss again. Craven still missed in this round. He was under too much pressure. After the shot, he regretfully shook his head. He knew his own level. First, he helplessly looked at Doug. Then, he carried his shotgun and shook hands with Yang Yi, taking the initiative to admit defeat. "Child, you're very strong. Really strong." Craven shrugged and said, "There's no need for the next 2 rounds. I can't be like you and hit 2 perfect hits in a row." "You're very strong too. You gave me a lot of pressure," Yang Yi politely said. However, the onlookers were not happy. "Finish the shot. Craven, if you don't want to shoot, let this kid finish. We still want to see his amazing performance." "It's okay, we still have one more round." Doug came out to smooth things over. He pointed at Stuart and said, "Stuart will fight with him later." Stuart smiled bitterly at the side. He had indeed hit a perfect shot a few days ago, but that was just luck. Now, looking at Yang Yi's shooting posture and speed, he knew that he had encountered an expert and didn't have much of a chance of winning. However, cowboys would never back down so easily. Stuart wasn't as gutless as that fatty Craven. He clenched his teeth and finished 5 sets of shooting with Yang Yi. There was no suspense in the result. Stuart hit 4 flying saucers. He did not create a miracle. On the other hand, Yang Yi shot 5 sets of shots. 4 of them were perfect hits. One set had a small mistake and only hit 1 target. Mistakes were very normal. Even Olympic athletes would not dare to say that they could hit a flying saucer with every shot. Even so, this frightening hit rate was enough to make the spectators mesmerized. 2 pink flowers bloomed in the air consecutively. It was too shocking. The only pity is that Yang's opponent is not strong enough. Stuart is like a baby in front of him. He's being abused too badly. Nelson laughed. Now his heart was filled with pride. It was as if he was Yang Yi's father-in-law who had won the competition instead of Mo Henian. He. Doug is going to die of depression. He lost his car this time. An old man rubbed his fists. Burning clouds. I want to borrow it first. Don't fight with me. On Yang Yi's side, he handed the shotgun to Mo Henian. At this moment, he saw Mo Henian's gratified expression. Although the old man did not know how to express his approval of his son-in-law, his expression and attitude had changed greatly. Not bad. Mo Henian patted Yang Yi's shoulder affectionately. At this time, Doug shook his head and walked over with his car keys. Mo, my sports car is yours. Doug was more generous. He threw the keys to Mo Henian and looked at Yang Yi with a smile. He asked Mo Henian, "But I have a question. You have to tell me, who is this son-in-law of yours? He's so good with guns. Is he an athlete from the Chinese national team?" "No, he's not an athlete." "Haha, Yang Yi, tell him where you're from." Mo Henian said proudly in front of Doug Gu. Doug Gu looked at Yang Yi. Where did he come from? This question was worth considering. Yang Yi put away the smile on his face. He puffed out his chest, put his legs together, and gave a military salute. He said to Doug Gu with a serious face, "Sir, I'm a retired soldier from the People's XXX Army of China." Chapter 795. While Yang Yi was showing off his prowess at the shooting range, Shi was shopping with her mother and grandmother in a big shopping mall in Xiaoniu City. They were going in and out of the top women's clothing stores. Now, they were choosing clothes for Shi in a children's clothing store that could be catwalked in Milan Fashion Week. She doesn't have to wear a skirt to look good. Zhou Mingyu smiled and took a pair of jeans that looked very loose from the shelf. She gestured in front of Shi and said, Shi should look good in this. It can show off the advantage of her long legs. Murphy pushed the stroller to the side and asked, "Isn't this trouser a little wide?" Wide trouser legs are a style that has become popular again in recent years. Especially when women wear them, they will look taller and thinner, and they will look more elegant. Everyone says that you sing all day and don't care about fashion. You can't keep up with the trend, right? Zhou Mingyu smiled and said, "This is good, and the size is just right. Shi, change into it and wear it for grandma." Okay. She happily ran into the fitting room with the clothes. Of course, Zhou Mingyu followed and helped her adjust the corner of the clothes. After a while, Zhou Mingyu pulled Cici, who had changed her clothes, out of the fitting room. Zhou Mingyu, with a bright smile, waved her hand beside Cici and showed Mo Fei that her granddaughter's style had changed greatly. The little girl was still wearing the original short-sleeved t-shirt, but she had changed into a pair of jeans with wide trousers. The loose dark blue trousers could almost fit 3 or 4 of Shi's slender legs, but on Shi, it didn't look sloppy. Instead, it looked very neat, and it added a lazy and elegant temperament. Because of the high waist, the trousers looked very long, but the size seemed to be more suitable. She could even reveal a small part of her ankle. This kind of wide-legged trousers could make Shi look even more slender, as if there were legs under her neck. Not bad. Grandma has good taste, Murphy praised with a smile. Shi, you suddenly look handsome. When Shi heard her mother say that she was good-looking, She happily grabbed both sides of her trousers and twisted them to show off her wing-like trousers. She didn't forget to tell her mom about her discovery. Hee mom, look, there are 2 pockets here. It's very big and can store a lot of things. You can't put things in your pockets. She, do you know why we girls always carry a bag when we go out? Zhou Mingyu pointed at the leopard print bag she was carrying and asked seriously. Why? She blinked her big eyes and asked with some confusion, do we have to carry a lot of things? Of course not. We carry bags because they look good, just like necklaces, hair ribbons, sunglasses, and other accessories. They can be matched with our clothes and shoes. A girl without a bag is not complete. Only with a bag can we be safe and beautiful without any flaws. Zhou Mingyu spread out her 2 fingers and said with a bewitching voice. Mom, what do you mean by this and putting things in your trouser pockets? Murphy asked, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Murphy was actually a woman who knew how to dress up, but compared to Zhou Mingyu, her life was not exquisite enough. Of course it's related. Since we carry bags, why do we have to put things in our pockets? After putting things in our pockets, they will bulge out. Do they look good? Zhou Mingyu raised her eyebrows proudly. She was confused, but she still remembered what her grandmother had said. A girl without a bag is not complete. But Grandma, I don't have a bag. I have a school bag, can I? My papa bought a school bag for me to go to school. She asked worriedly. How can a school bag be compared with a bag? A bag is a bag. Zhou Mingyu snapped her fingers and said with a smile, She, it's okay if you don't have a bag now. Come shopping with Grandma today, and Grandma will pick the most beautiful bag for you that can match your trousers the best. Little Momo sat in the pram, leaning on the guardrail as he looked around curiously. The mall was cool and comfortable, spacious and bright. There were also colorful clothes and decorations. It was a dazzling array of things that made the little guy dizzy. Tong Tong was still young, after all, so he was not tired at all while being pushed by his mother in the pram. Instead, he seemed to be having fun. She wondered if he would be scared and run away when he heard his mother and grandmother talk about shopping when he grew up. After Zhou Mingyu bought a matching bag and shoes for Shi, Murphy took a card to pay the bill. Originally, Zhou Mingyu wanted to pay the bill, but she couldn't persuade Murphy. Murphy said that it was impossible for her to spend her parents' money. Therefore, he simply let Mo Fei pay for all the expenses today. Zhou Mingyu stood aside and watched Murphy pay with her black gold-plated credit card and sign her name. She asked curiously, You got this card in China, right? What's the limit? Is it enough for today? Limit? Let me think. This card was given to me by Yang Yi. I think it's 5 million yuan. But I don't remember the exact amount. I don't usually spend much, and at most, I buy some clothes. Murphy thought for a while and said to her mother. Although they were talking in front of the shop assistant, they were talking in Cantonese, so they didn't have to worry about being overheard by the white girls. 5 million yuan? Zhou Mingyu looked at Murphy in surprise. The unit is RMB, which is less than 1 million yuan. Murphy thought that her mother had misunderstood. That's not a small amount. Zhou Mingyu pondered and said, Isn't Yang Yi a novel writer? How could he give you such a high-limit credit card? To have such a high limit, he must have at least a few 100 million yuan. He should have some, right? Murphy smiled and said, I heard from Yang Yi that he bought a large piece of land with a friend to build an amusement park for Shi. It seems that he spent 500 to 600 million yuan. Yang Yi didn't hide it from Murphy, but Murphy didn't pay attention to it. She wasn't interested in these things. Where did he get so much money? Zhou Mingyu gasped. He started a company. He has several internet companies. I forgot which ones. It seems that he also has shares in an online shopping website. But he let others manage it, and he provides ideas. I think it's good. Murphy smiled and said, How come you don't know anything? You don't remember anything? You have to ask him. I don't remember. Why would I ask Yang-e these things? It's boring. Murphy shook her head. Zhou Mingyu was speechless for a while. She said resentfully, other women control the financial power of the family. You, on the other hand, don't know how much money the family has, and you don't have any interest in knowing. You'll suffer in the future, daughter. Mom, you also don't control Papa's finances, right? Murphy shook Zhou Mingyu's hand and smiled. Aren't you two very good? What's the matter? Your father is different. Although he has a bad temper, he is very down to earth. Moreover, he doesn't have much money. He invested all his spare money in the farm. I don't worry that he will take the money and spend it on wine and women. Zhou Mingyu pulled Murphy to the side and sat down. She avoided Shi and whispered, but Yang-e is different. After all, we don't know him. Men become bad when they have money. If you don't want money, what if he gives the money to other women? Mom, you really don't have to worry about this. Murphy said coquettishly, Yang-e is not such a person. Moreover, he has no concept of money. Although he has made a lot of money, he has not become extravagant. I live with him, how can I not know his character? He stays with me every day, gets up early every day to buy groceries and cook for me and the children. If he goes on a business trip to another city, if he can take us with him, he will not go alone. She will pester him. In such a situation, how can he have other women? Zhou Mingyu was silent. In fact, Zhou Mingyu didn't need to listen to Murphy's words. Now, when she saw the happy smile on Murphy's face, Zhou Mingyu already understood. However, the more Murphy said, the happier she became. She smiled and said, if you want to say that he gives the money to other women, there is one. Who? Zhou Mingyu asked in surprise. Murphy pouted in the direction of Shi and said with a smile, Shi. In order to build the amusement park for Shi, he spent hundreds of millions. It is said that he will spend more in the future. Zhou Mingyu was speechless. You are jealous of your daughter. Don't say that. Now that you mention it, I am really a little jealous. Murphy laughed. Chapter 796. Seeing her daughter so happy, Zhou Mingyu was both gratified and a little worried. All right, as long as you're happy. I just hope you'll be more careful. Men, especially men with talent and status like Yang-e, are the easiest to attract the covetous eyes of those crazy bees and butterflies. You must always be on your guard. Just as the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law were talking about the art of controlling one's husband, the relationship between Yang-e and Mo Henian improved by leaps and bounds at the shooting range. Surprised by the strength of the Chinese army's ordinary soldiers, Doug and the others were willing to admit defeat. After handing over the car and leaving, Yang-e accompanied the old man to continue playing with guns at the shooting range. The two of them even played with light sniper rifles. Yang-e did not show off his superhuman shooting skills again. He just accompanied Mo Henian, played with his father-in-law, and chatted with him. Those things in the army are over. I've been retired for 7 or 8 years. There's no way I'll be sent to the battlefield. I'm now in contact with my former army. They hired me to be their spokesperson just to shoot some army promotional videos or participate in some army cultural activities and sing some songs. There's no danger. My shooting skills are actually not bad. I used to have a foundation in shooting. I even practiced skeet shooting at my friend's place. I'm actually not the best at playing with guns. Give me a few throwing knives. These are more useful than guns in short to medium-range encounters. As they chatted, they even changed a few weapons to try out. In the end, Yang-e even saw a cold weapon in the gun register. Bow and arrow. They actually have this in the gun club. Can I give it a try? Yang-e showed a great deal of interest. At noon, at Nelson's bar, under his special hospitality, they had a simple lunch. Yang-e and Mo Henian actually played to their heart's content until the evening. Only then did they leisurely drive the Burning Cloud sports car that had been gangbanged by a few old men home. Coincidentally, Zhou Mengyu and Murphy had just arrived home with the children. They heard the muffled roar of an engine. When they turned around, they saw a bright-colored convertible sports car with a ferocious aura coming from afar. Zhou Mengyu and Murphy were so scared that they hurriedly pulled Shishi's hand and hid in a safe place. However, the sports car swung its tail and stopped in the courtyard. At this moment, they finally saw Mo Henian and Yang Yi in the car, who were laughing mischievously. Of course, it was just their misconception that he was smiling wickedly. "What are you doing?" Murphy smiled and said, "Yang Yi, where did you take my papa to play?" In fact, Murphy was very happy because she saw the close relationship between Yang Yi and Mo Henian. They had only not seen each other for a day. How did the two of them suddenly get along? What had they gone through? Do you still need to ask? Look at their car. They must have gone to buy a car. Zhou Mengyu snorted softly. They spent money recklessly. Hee, you guessed wrong. Mo Henian said proudly. We didn't spend a penny to get this car back. Do you want to know how we got it? While her father-in-law was talking excitedly, Shishi ran to her father, who had just got out of the car. She couldn't wait to lift up the bag in her hand and smiled sweetly. "Papa, look, Grandma bought this for me." Murphy didn't pay attention to this, or she would have complained in her heart, "I paid for it." Yang Yi smiled and touched his daughter's little head. He said, "Did you have fun shopping with Grandma today?" This was a wrong answer. Shishi pouted her small mouth, stood on tiptoe, and showed her father the dark blue bag with a cartoon pattern in her hand. She said unwillingly, "No, Papa, look at my bag. Is it beautiful?" "It's beautiful. Did you pick it or Grandma? You have such good taste." Yang Yi praised. Only then did Cici giggle in satisfaction. Grandma picked it. After the little girl let her father admire her new bag, she curiously sized up the sports car behind her father. The car had a streamlined body and was painted with a bright red paint that resembled a burning cloud. "Do you like it? Come on, Dad will drive you around." Yang Yi smiled and waved at Shishi. The little girl liked to go for a ride, especially when the car was fast. She liked it very much since she was a child. When Yang Yi took Murphy and Shishi to Kaiyun to play, she often asked her father to roll down the window. After a round of driving, Cici grew even more fond of this good-looking car. In the evening, Murphy was a little tired after shopping for a day. After all, she was responsible for pushing the car and carrying things. After coaxing Tong Tong, she went to bed early. Cici, on the other hand, was full of energy. She chattered about today's experience to her father and even vividly repeated what her grandmother had told her about dressing up. Grandma said that we should all have bags. School bags are not bags. Shishi said, lying comfortably in her father's arms. Yang Yi listened patiently and said, "You bought a lot of clothes today. You also bought a lot. There are many dresses and many other styles of clothes. I just found them when I was organizing them for you. There are so many beautiful clothes." As Cici spoke, she mischievously raised her little feet and reached out to play with them. She twisted and turned, not looking sleepy at all. "But you bought so many clothes. How can you wear them all?" Yang Yi asked. She blinked. She had never thought about this problem. Now she looked at her father and said innocently, "Papa, can I wear new clothes every day?" "That's too wasteful." Yang Yi shook his head gently. "But Grandma said that I need a lot of clothes to wear enough." She said with her little hands and pouted. Although Yang Yi didn't think there was anything wrong with buying clothes for his daughter, Yang Yi secretly frowned at the situation tonight. It seemed that after coming back today, Shishi's interest had all run to clothes, bags, and all kinds of clothes. She couldn't stop talking about, Grandma said. Last night, before going to bed, she had pestered him to continue telling her the story of The Chronicles of Narnia. Tonight, she didn't want to listen to the story at all. Yang Yi didn't deny that his mother-in-law's aesthetic and fashion standards were indeed very high. He also hoped that she would dress beautifully. However, Yang Yi didn't want Shi to be like other rich girls who only thought about clothes and bags. It was so tacky that it was disgusting. However, Shi was still in high spirits, so Yang Yi didn't make any moves. The next morning, Yang Yi went to discuss with Mo Henian. After hearing what he said, Mo Henian generously waved his hand and said, "You won this car. You can do whatever you want with it." Therefore, Yang Yi went upstairs and leaned against the doorframe, looking at Shi who was playing happily with the Great Dane. "Shi, Papa will take you for a ride. Let's drive the car that Papa won yesterday, okay?" Yang Yi said softly. "Okay. Papa, I like to ride in this car." She was overjoyed when she heard this. She ran over and said, "But Papa, can Dahe come with us?" Dahe was the name of the Great Dane raised by Mo Henian. "In the future, I'll take Dahe with me. Today, it's just the two of us," Yang Yi said. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.